Chapter 1806. The fixed body technique was comprehended by the Dragon Phoenix true body through the Saber Emperor's inheritance, the Sea Calming Scroll. Although the Dragon Phoenix true body had disappeared, the Dragon Phoenix primordial spirit had merged with Qinglian's primordial spirit, and she had successfully inherited this small mystical ability. The restriction of the fixed body technique was not obvious among those of the same level, and it lasted less than a breath. But for Su Zimo, this momentary pause was enough. Swoosh! A green light crashed into the front of the stage 4 Mystic Immortal. Su Zimo bent his knee forward, and a huge force suddenly crashed into the person's chest. The terrifying explosive force directly smashed the stage 4 Mystic Immortal into pieces, and his flesh and blood flew everywhere. Following that, Su Zimo directly charged into the crowd, and no Mystic Immortal of the Wolf Army could stop him. For a moment, the Wolf Army was in a mess, and they fell into chaos. Xia Qingying and the rest of the Wind Snow Ridge people were dumbfounded. Among the crowd, there were also some cultivators who were proficient in body refinement, but after they ascended to the upper realm, due to the lack of heaven and earth essence qi, it was extremely difficult for them to even raise their cultivation, let alone refine their flesh and blood. No one had ever seen such a powerful method. In the blink of an eye, a Stage 5 and Stage 4 Mystic Immortal of the Wolf Army died. This was simply a human-shaped Dharma treasure, extremely fierce, and wherever it passed, no one could withstand its sharpness. Xia Qingying also reacted at this time and hurriedly shouted, "Wind Snow Ridge Guards, attack with all your strength and help fellow Taoists Su kill the enemy." "No, eldest young mistress." Just now Liang Qiu, who had been hiding in the crowd, suddenly jumped out when they were surrounded by the Wolf Army. Liang Qiu swallowed his saliva and said, "Eldest young mistress, don't be rash. The Wolf Army is ferocious and bloodthirsty, and they seek revenge for the smallest grievance. If you kill a cultivator of the Wolf Army, they will definitely take revenge. They've already been killed, can we still avoid it?" Xia Qingying glared at Liang Qiu. Liang Qiu hurriedly said, "They were killed by Su Zimo. He just ascended and stayed in Wind Snow Ridge for a year, so he's not considered a member of our Wind Snow Ridge. We just need to draw a line with him, we can—" "What did you say?" Xia Qingying was enraged. She looked at Liang Qiu in disbelief and shouted, "Su Zimo is from Wind Snow Ridge. You should know that if it weren't for him, just now, all of us, including you, would have died under the butcher's knife of the Wolf Army." Xia Qingying's words were extremely harsh and did not leave any face for Liang Qiu. Liang Qiu stammered, his face flushed. "Commander Liang, aren't you betraying Guard Su like this?" "That's right. Imperial Bodyguard Su is killing enemies at the front, yet we're hiding behind and watching with folded arms. Isn't this too disappointing?" Some of the guards who had followed Liang Qiu for many years could not stand it anymore and whispered. Liang Qiu's face turned ugly. This time, he stood up and wanted to sell Su Zimo. On one hand, it was because he had a personal grudge with Su Zimo. On the other hand, he was indeed afraid of the revenge of the Wolf Army. Xia Qingying said solemnly, "Everyone listen to my orders. If we can't defeat the evil Wolf Army this time, we will all die here." Many Wind Snow Ridge guards hollered and summoned all sorts of black-grade dermic treasures, divine powers and immortal arts, charging into the battlefield. In fact, even without the addition of Wind Snow Ridge, the Wolf Army was already defeated. They could not do anything to Su Zimo. Su Zimo's movement technique was extremely agile as he moved around the crowd. It was as though he possessed an indescribable spirit perception that could allow him to avoid most of the dermic treasures and divine powers. Some of the dermic treasures were about to hit that person. Out of nowhere, that person took out a handful of yellow sand that shone with a golden light and circled around him, creating an impenetrable storm. Although the yellow sand looked ordinary, their dermic treasures and divine powers could not penetrate it at all. Divine powers dissipated silently when they struck it. When dermic treasures struck it, they could not withstand the force and fell from midair. How would those bandits know that this was an utmost treasure created by the Grade 9 Qinglian, the 9 Heavens living soil? It was ever-changing and had shocking defensive capabilities. Almost all of them were inferior-grade black-grade dermic treasures. Even superior-grade or supreme-grade dermic treasures could not shake the 9 heavens living soil. The ferocity in the eyes of the wolf army cultivators gradually disappeared. After a short battle, it turned into confusion and finally fear. They could not hurt Su Zimo at all. Instead, several Stage 4 Mystic Immortals were killed by Su Zimo. Even Stage 4 Mystic Immortals could not last more than 2 or 3 rounds in Su Zimo's hands. At this moment, Xia Qingying led the Wind Snow Ridge people to join the battlefield and rushed over. In fact, although Xia Qingying and the others had a large number of people, in the eyes of the wolf army, they were not as terrifying as Su Zimo. However, at this moment, the wolf army's morale had already dissipated. After being charged by the Wind Snow Ridge people, they completely collapsed and could no longer hold on. The situation is tense, retreat. A mystic immortal from the wolf army shouted loudly. This was a slang among bandits and roving bandits, which meant that everyone should get out of here. The wolf army bandits did not even think as they rode their black-scaled demonic wolves and quickly escaped from the battlefield, rushing into the distance. Even without the wolf army's urging, the black-scaled demonic wolves under them also ran for their lives, not even looking back. Although they were demonic beasts and were born with strong physical bodies, in the hands of that green-robed cultivator, they were so weak that they could not even withstand a single blow. The strangest thing was that this green-robed cultivator faintly emitted an aura that made their hearts tremble. Under this aura, they even had the urge to lie down on the ground. The wolf army came quickly, but they fled even faster. Like the wind, they stirred up clouds of dust and smoke as they quickly retreated and fled in all directions, leaving dozens of corpses on the ground. Su Zimo smiled coldly and was about to chase after them when Xia Qingying suddenly called out to him. "Fellow Taoist Su." Xia Qingying hurriedly ran over and said, "Forget it, don't chase after a cornered enemy. These black-scaled demonic wolves are extremely fast. Even with my mount, the Unicorn Divine Beast's leg strength, we can't catch up with them. If even the Unicorn Divine Beast could not do it, the other mounts of everyone from Wind Snow Ridge were even worse." At that moment, they were still lying on the ground, not daring to get up. Although flying in the air was fast on Dragon Abyss Planet, it consumed too much energy and they could no longer support themselves after flying for a short distance. "Let's hurry up and tidy up the battlefield and leave this place lest the wolf army comes back." Xia Qingying looked at Su Zimo and asked with a questioning look in her eyes. Unknowingly, Xia Qingying had already treated Su Zimo as the commander of this operation. "You guys leave first. I'll follow and take a look." Su Zimo smiled and moved, sprinting in the direction where the wolf army disappeared at a speed that did not seem fast. Xia Qingying was about to speak when Su Zimo had already left. "Humph, what a hypocrite," Liang Qiu sneered. "What a joke. Does he think that he can outrun the black-scaled demonic wolves with his own feet? Missy, that person is just putting on an act. You don't have to bother about him." 2K Reading Network. Chapter 1807. Xia Qingying glanced at Liang Qiu coldly and ignored him. Just now, Liang Qiu's cowardice left a deep impression on her. Although Liang Qiu's talent was not bad, his cultivation level was rising rapidly, and his combat strength was considered to be in the upper echelons of Wind Snow Ridge. His courage was really not suitable to be the commander of Wind Snow Ridge's guards. At least, Su Zimo was much stronger than Liang Qiu in every aspect. Xia Qingying did not say anything, but she already had a plan in her heart. When she returned to Wind Snow Ridge, she would directly remove Liang Qiu from the position of commander. Liang Qiu had suffered a loss at Xia Qingying's hands and vaguely guessed that Xia Qingying's impression of him was probably extremely bad. "Missy, what should we do now?" A Wind Snow Ridge guard stepped forward and asked. "Clean up the battlefield. We will return to Wind Snow Ridge immediately." Xia Qingying waved her hand and ordered. Many Wind Snow Ridge cultivators agreed and began to clean up the battlefield. In this battle, none of the Wind Snow Ridge cultivators died. At most, they only suffered some minor injuries. They had just joined the battlefield and the wolf army had already been defeated and fled. And this time, Su Zimo had killed a total of 52 wolf army soldiers. Among them, there was also the small leader of this wolf army, a Stage 5 Mystic Immortal, and 13 Stage 4 Mystic Immortals. Many Wind Snow Ridge guards collected all the Dharma treasures and storage bags of the wolf army and handed them to Xia Qingying. These things were not a small gain for Wind Snow Ridge. One had to know that most of the Mystic Immortals in Wind Snow Ridge did not have any mystic treasures. At this moment, the ground shook violently again. Dust rose again in the distance. There was actually another army rushing towards this place. Oh no! Liang Qiu's expression changed drastically as he exclaimed, "It must be the main force of the wolf army coming to take revenge. I knew it. That Su Zimo had caused big trouble. This is really bad." When the other Wind Snow Ridge guards heard this, their faces were also ashen and filled with fear. However, Xia Qingying was not in a hurry to make a judgment. A trace of confusion flashed across her eyes. "I know that Su Zimo did not chase after the fleeing wolf army at all. He just escaped directly." Liang Qiu said hatefully, "He knows that he has caused big trouble. That's why he escaped and left this matter to Wind Snow Ridge. It's not impossible." "Yes. It. So. Hearing Liang Qiu's words, many Wind Snow Ridge guards began to waver. "Don't speak nonsense," Xia Qingying scolded. She looked at the dust in the distance and said, "The people who came shouldn't be the evil wolf army. Everyone, don't panic." Moreover, even if the wolf army wanted to take revenge, it would be impossible for them to come so quickly. Almost as soon as the wolf army left, this army appeared. Moreover, this army was coming from Xianggu. Xia Qingying already had a vague guess in her heart. It didn't take long for everyone to see the flag waving high in the middle of the army. As expected, Xia Qingying nodded. The flag was completely black. A blood-red sun was engraved in the middle as if it was the rising sun. It was Xianggu's war flag. Many Wind Snow Ridge guards heaved a sigh of relief when they saw the flag. Liang Qiu seemed to have completely forgotten what he had said just now. He smiled awkwardly and said, "Fortunately, it was just a false alarm." Soon, the army arrived in front of Wind Snow Ridge. There were more than 1,000 people, and they were fully equipped. The leader was a young man in silver armor. He held a silver spear in his hand. His black hair was tied up. His cheeks were thin, and his eyes were long and narrow. He gave off a sinister feeling. It's the eldest son of Xianggu's Valley Master, Qin Xianyang. He's a Stage 6 Mystic Immortal. Liang Qiu whispered when he saw this person. It was the first time for some Wind Snow Ridge guards to see this person. They were surprised and respectful. Stage 6 Mystic Immortal. The Lord of Wind Snow Ridge was only a Stage 6 Mystic Immortal. It was rumored that Xianggu's Valley Master was a Stage 8 Mystic Immortal. Qin Xianyang led the army here. He looked at the corpses of the wolf army not far away. A cold light flashed in his eyes. "Young Master Qin, why are you here?" Xia Qingying went up and greeted him with cupped fists. Qin Xianyang smiled at Xia Qingying. His eyes were bright. "Qingying, I told you before that there's no need to be so distant between us. Just call me Xianyang." Many of the guards could tell that the way this eldest young master of the Blood Sun Valley looked at Xia Qingying was obviously different. There were rumors in Wind Snow Ridge that this Xianggu's eldest son had fallen in love with their eldest daughter. However, no one dared to confirm it. Xia Qingying hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Xianyang." "Yes." Qin Xianyang nodded slightly and said slowly, "During this period of time, my men reported that one of the 4 bandits, the Wolf Army, appeared near Xianggu. Today is the day that Wind Snow Ridge came to Xianggu to exchange for the core condensing pill. I was worried that something might happen to you, so I personally led the army here." At this point, Qin Xianyang looked at the dozens of corpses of the Wolf Army. His expression was cold, but there was a strange look in his eyes. "I didn't expect that the Wolf Army would really find you." Qin Xianyang rode a warhorse and slowly came to Xia Qingying. He asked with concern, "Qingying, are you hurt?" "I'm fine." Xia Qingying shook her head. Our Wind Snow Ridge's guards are fine this time. There are no casualties. Oh! A strange look flashed in Chen Xuanyang's eyes. He asked curiously, the wolf army is ferocious and bloodthirsty, and they are powerful. I didn't expect you to be able to kill dozens of them. It really surprised me. Chen Xuanyang's gaze swept across the Wind Snow Ridge's people, and he frowned slightly. That's strange. Among your guards, the highest cultivation is only you and this commander. You're only a 4th stage mystic immortal. How could you kill the 5th stage mystic immortal of the wolf army? Qin Xianyang asked again. Xia Qingying was about to answer when she suddenly thought of something. She asked, how did you know that person was a 5th stage mystic immortal? If a cultivator was alive, one could check the other party's cultivation with their divine consciousness. However, it was difficult to accurately check a dead person's cultivation. Chen Xianyang could accurately say that the leader of the wolf army was a 5th stage mystic immortal. This was really strange. Chapter 1808. Chen Xuanyang's expression did not change, and he explained naturally. Before this, Zhu Yangu's guards fought with the wolf army and lost a few guards. The rest of them returned to Zhu Yangu and told me that the leader of the wolf army was a level 5 mystic immortal. So that's how it is. Xia Qingying's expression relaxed slightly, and she nodded. Just now, an extremely terrifying guess flashed through her mind. But now it seemed that she might have been overthinking. Qingying. Chen Xianyang saw Xia Qingying frowning in deep thought and smiled. He called out softly, you haven't answered my question. According to what I know, the wolf army has hundreds of people. Be it in terms of numbers or combat strength, they are far superior to you. How could? The scene in front of him was indeed difficult to understand. On the battlefield, there were dozens of corpses of the wolf army lying everywhere, but the people of Wind Snow Ridge were almost unscathed. Xia Qingying said, it was one of my personal guards who took action and killed these evil wolf army bandits, leading us to push the evil wolf army back. Chen Xuanyang's eyes lit up and he asked, your personal guard? Why didn't I hear Qingying mention it before? What's his cultivation? Level 5 or level 6 mystic immortal? Chen Xianyang asked a few questions in a row. Xia Qingying frowned slightly. At this moment, Liang Qiu said sourly, young Master Chen, you overestimated him. He's just a level 4 mystic immortal. Level 4 mystic immortal? A cold light flashed in the depths of Chen Xuanyang's eyes. If this person was a level 4 mystic immortal, then he did not overestimate him, but underestimated him. Chen Xianyang looked deeply at Liang Qiu. He caught the dissatisfaction and jealousy in Liang Qiu's tone. Chen Xianyang cupped his fists slightly at Liang Qiu and said, this time, Commander Liang must have played a crucial role in Wind Snow Ridge being able to defeat the wolf army. I wouldn't dare. Liang Qiu suddenly felt flattered and said hurriedly. Not to mention that Chen Xianyang was the eldest son of Zhu Yangu. Even if a 6th stage mystic immortal praised him like this, it would still be a great honor. Liang Qiu coughed softly and unconsciously straightened his back. This time, we were able to defeat the wolf army because of eldest Mrs. Command. Wind and Snow Ridge work together. Naturally, it cannot be the work of one person. Chen Xianyang asked casually, who is this person? Why haven't I heard of him before? Liang Qiu said, he's just a servant who has just ascended. He hasn't even been in Snow Wind Ridge for a year. He coughed. Liang Qiu was about to continue when he was interrupted by Xia Qingying's soft cough. Xia Qingying cupped her fists at Chen Xianyang and said with a smile, thank you, Xianyang, for rushing over to help this time. We have to return to Snow Wind Ridge now and report this matter to Father so that he can prepare early. Chen Xianyang pondered for a while and said, after all, many of the wolf army have escaped. If you turn back now, I won't be at ease. Qingying, follow me back to Zhu Yangu. With me escorting you, there won't be any more changes. Xia Qingying was a little hesitant. This time, she was going to Zhu Yangu to exchange for the core condensing pill. If she returned empty-handed, she was afraid that some of the medicine farmers in Snow Wind Ridge would be disappointed. However, she was also worried about Snow Wind Ridge. Chen Xianyang seemed to see Xia Qingying's worry and said with a smile, "Qingying, don't worry. I can send a 5th stage Mystic Immortal under my command to Snow Wind Ridge to report that we are safe and let Snow Wind Ridge be prepared. If there are really bandits coming, he can also stay in Snow Wind Ridge to help defend against the enemy." After that, Chen Xianyang did not wait for Xia Qingying to reply. He looked to the side and said in a deep voice, "Tan Hong, go and report this matter to Snow Wind Ridge truthfully." "Yes, young master." A strong man in black clothes cupped his fists at Chen Xianyang and rode his warhorse to gallop towards Snow Wind Ridge. "Let's go, Qingying." Chen Xianyang turned slightly and made an inviting gesture. Xia Qingying frowned slightly and was still a little hesitant. She thought for a while and waved her hand to summon 2 guards from Snow Wind Ridge. She whispered, "The 2 of you stay nearby and hide carefully. If you see Guard Su return, bring him with you to Xianggu." Xia Qingying was still worried about Su Zimo in her heart. She was not worried about Su Zimo's safety, but she thought that if Su Zimo returned here, there had to be someone to receive him. After all, Su Zimo had never been to Xianggu. "Miss, what if Guard Su doesn't return?" One of the guards whispered, "I feel that Commander Liang's words are not without reason. Guard Su might be afraid of the Wolf Army's revenge and has already escaped." "Don't think too much." Xia Qingying scolded them and said in a low voice, "You guys just wait here until he comes back. If he doesn't return..." Xia Qingying hesitated slightly and said, "When I return from Xianggu, I will naturally bring the 2 of you along. The 2 of you will have to work a little harder." The 2 guards from Snow Wind Ridge agreed. After making these arrangements, Xia Qingying turned to look at Chen Xianyang and said with a smile, "Xianyang, let's go." Chen Xianyang nodded slightly and led the 1,000-strong army of Xianggu to escort the 100-odd people from Snow Wind Ridge to Xianggu. After Su Zimo left the sight of Xia Qingying and the others, he began to fly in the air. His speed increased sharply as he chased after the few escaping Wolf Army soldiers. Since he had already taken action this time, he would not leave any trouble for himself or Snow Wind Ridge. He had to kill all of these Wolf Army soldiers to prevent future troubles. Just now, under the watchful eyes of the people from Snow Wind Ridge, Su Zimo could not use his full strength. There were many methods that he did not reveal. Now that the Wolf Army was fleeing in all directions, he had to wait for them to gather again if he wanted to catch all of them in one fell swoop. Therefore, Su Zimo only stared at the few Stage 4 Mystic Immortals of the Wolf Army and slowly followed behind them. He was not in a hurry to take action. He was sure that the Wolf Army must have some means of communication that could allow the escaping bandits to gather again. These Stage 4 Mystic Immortals of the Wolf Army were extremely vigilant. During their escape, they changed their route several times and stopped from time to time to check their surroundings. As expected, after a long time, these few Wolf Army soldiers were sure that they were out of danger. Only then did they stop and take out a talisman from their storage bag. They wrote a few words on it and tore it up. This talisman shot into the sky and emitted a divine light in midair before quickly fading away. These Stage 4 Mystic Immortals jumped down from the black-scaled demonic wolves. Their faces were pale and they were panting slightly, as if they were still afraid. "That person should not have chased after us," one of them said. "Don't worry, no matter how fast that person is, he can't be faster than our black-scaled demonic wolves. Even if he chased after us, we would have long left him behind." Another person said. Chapter 1809. These Stage 4 Mystic Immortals of the Vicious Wolf Army did not notice that the person they had shaken off was rapidly approaching them, and they did not notice at all. Not to mention them, even the sharp black scale demon wolf did not notice him at all. Su Zimo had completely concealed his aura, and what he emitted was the aura of plants. His entire body was hidden in the grass that was half the height of a person, and he moved stealthily with the swaying of the grass and trees. He was almost one with the surroundings, and there were no flaws. Su Zimo's movement technique was agile, and he quickly climbed up a huge ancient tree. Sitting on the branch, he looked down at the vicious wolf army not far away. At this distance, Su Zimo could clearly hear the conversation of these people. "We've really suffered a big loss this time. A large-eared cultivator gritted his teeth and said hatefully. A bald man cursed, "Damn it, who would have thought that there would be such a troublesome person in Wind Snow Ridge? Our Bosco was directly killed by that brat." Bosco was careless. If it was a normal fight, that brat would definitely not be a match for Bosco. Another person said. The large-eared cultivator asked, "What do we do now? What else can we do? Let's wait for the others to gather first." The bald man could not help but curse again. "Damn it, when has our vicious wolf army suffered such a big loss? It's all the fault of Zhiyangu's eldest young master, Qin Shenyang." The large-eared cultivator complained. He wanted to play the hero and win the beauty's heart, and he even wanted us to put on a show with him. Now, not only did we not get any immortal herbs from Wind Snow Ridge, but we also suffered losses. Su Zimo was originally sitting on the ancient tree with a relaxed expression, and his eyes were closed. When he heard this, he suddenly opened his eyes, and a cold light flashed across them. "So it's Zhiyangu's doing?" Su Zimo sneered in his heart. It was no wonder that the evil wolf army would appear in this region. It was no wonder that Feng Shuling was intercepted by the evil wolf army on his way to Zhiyangu. Another person said, "In my opinion, with Qin Xuanyang's cultivation and status, and with Zhiyangu's strength, if he fancies that girl, he can just use force. How simple is that?" The bald man sneered. "Zhiyangu and his son are hypocrites. They love to play dirty tricks. All these years, who knows how many forces have been schemed against by them. Heh, I heard that the reason why the three great powers were replaced by Zhiyangu was because they fell into the Valley Master's trap." In just a short while, the scattered members of the wolf army had already arrived and met up with the large-eared cultivator, the bald man, and the others. When it was almost dusk, the cultivators of the wolf army who had fled in all directions had all gathered. The bald man counted and his face darkened. He said with hatred, "Motherf asterisk cur, including Bosco, we've lost 52 brothers. We can't just let this go. That's right. We'll make Feng Shuling pay with his blood. Our wolf army will turn Feng Shuling into a river of blood and kill every single one of them." Many members of the wolf army shouted with murderous intent. The bald man said in a deep voice, "Everyone, don't be anxious. I heard that the territorial lord of Feng Shuling has some tricks up his sleeves. He's a level 6 mystic immortal. Given our strength, it's difficult for us to fight against him. I reckon that we'll have to ask one of the leaders of our wolf army to take action if we want to destroy Feng Shuling. Let's not delay any longer. Let's head back now." The large-eared cultivator said. "Since there's no time to lose, how about I send you guys off?" Right then, a voice sounded from the chaotic crowd. It was clearly out of place with the surrounding clamor. The bald man's expression changed. He looked around and shouted, "Who is it? Who is the one who spoke?" "It's me." Su Zimo's figure flashed and floated down from the ancient tree. He stood quietly in midair as his blood chi surged and his eyes shone with a divine light. This time round, since Su Zimo wanted to kill all of them, he did not hide the bloodline of Qinglian's true body. "It's him. When did that person catch up?" The expressions of many cultivators of the wolf army changed starkly as they exclaimed. The bald cultivator felt his limbs turn cold. However, he could still maintain his composure and shouted, "Brothers, don't panic. Let's join forces and fight against this person again. I don't believe that more than 400 of us can't defeat him alone." Over the years, the hands of the wolf army were stained with blood and all of them were bloodthirsty people. When they heard that, the eyes of the wolf army revealed a ferocious glint as they took out their Dharma treasures and activated their mystic skills to release a series of ferocious attacks. Swoosh! Su Zimo's figure flashed as he released heavenly mystic skills, earth-warping golden light and other mystic skills. His speed was shockingly fast and he dodged most of the Dharma treasures. Before the remaining Dharma treasures could hit him, he waved his sleeves and a handful of yellow sand appeared, devouring the dozens of incoming Dharma treasures instantly. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Ever since he obtained the 9 heavens living soil, he had only used it for defense and had never used it for offense. Right now, the nine heavens living soil was wrapped around dozens of inferior-grade Dharma treasures, and Su Zimo's spirit consciousness seemed to be fused with every single grain of the nine heavens living soil. With a single thought, the nine heavens living soil shone with a golden light and the yellow sand surged. Every single grain of yellow sand released a powerful force that exerted force against each other at the same time. The dozens of Dharma treasures were ground into scraps by the nine heavens living soil and scattered down from midair. Pissed. Seeing this scene, the wolf army sucked in a breath of cold air. Not to mention them, even Su Zimo was shocked. The nine heavens living soil was peerless in defense. He never expected that it could release such terrifying lethality when used for offense as well. Furthermore, this was a profound Dharma treasure. If any living being were to fall into it, they would probably be ground into nothingness by the yellow sand. With that thought in mind, Su Zimo controlled the nine heavens living soil and swept the dozens of black-scaled fiend wolves into it. The black-scaled fiend wolves only had time to let out a miserable cry before they were crushed by the yellow sand and turned into a mist of blood. All of them perished. Even those hard scales could not withstand the friction of the yellow sand. The nine heavens living soil was extremely extraordinary. After killing the dozens of black-scaled fiend wolves, there was not a single drop of blood on the yellow sand, and it was still shining with a golden light. Run for your lives. When the wolf army saw that, their spirits collapsed once more as they shouted and fled in all directions. Su Zimo stood in the air with a gaze that was like lightning as he said indifferently, "It's rare for us to gather together. Don't leave." He formed sword seals with both hands and pointed forward. Countless strands of sword chi suddenly descended from the sky. It was a vast expanse of white and poured down like a torrential rain, enveloping the wolf army. End of chapter. Chapter 1810. The heaven-slaying sword art was a top-grade immortal art of the upper world to begin with. It was only because of other reasons that it ended up in the lower world. It was only when this sword art was truly released with heaven-earth essence chi that its terrifying might was revealed. The sword chi was as dense as rain and sharp as a thunderclap. Descending from the skies, it enveloped more than 400 members of the evil wolf army. None of them were spared. The sword chi pierced through the bodies of the evil wolf army and let out a series of horrifying sounds. It was as though a sharp blade had pierced through flesh cleanly. Most of the evil wolf army were grade 3 mystic immortals. Even a body-tempering grade 3 mystic immortal could not defend against the sharpness of the heaven-slaying sword chi with their bodies. Not to mention them, even the demonic wolves with hard scales were mostly annihilated by the rain-like sword energy. Actually, almost all the living beings and cultivators on the Dragon Abyss planet ascended from the lower world and had limited knowledge. They did not recognize creation Qinglian at all, much less the heaven-slaying sword chi. By the time the bandits realized that they could not defend against the sword chi of the person before them, it was already too late. For the evil wolf army, such a ferocious attack was absolutely destructive. Almost the moment the heaven-slaying sword chi descended, more than half of the evil wolf army were pierced by the sword chi and died on the spot. The sword rain descended and landed on the ground, creating a white mist. However, the white mist was soon dyed red by the splattering blood. Only a small number of grade 4 mystic immortals managed to hold on with their Dharma treasures, armors, divine powers and immortal arts, wanting to charge out of the range of the heaven-slaying sword chi. Su Zimo looked down from above and sneered. Closing his fingers, he conjured another sword art and slashed forward. A shuddering killing intent burst forth and the ground quaked. Dragons and snakes rose from the ground when the earth released its killing intent. Initially, the earth-slaying sword art was only comprehended by Wu Dao's true body. However, Wu Dao's true body cultivated divine powers and did not rely on this sword art. He rarely released it as well. The greatest power of this sword art could only be unleashed on Qinglian's true body. Therefore, before ascending, Wu Dao's original body imparted the earth-killing sword art to Qinglian's true body. Roar! Suddenly, a huge 5-clawed divine dragon descended from the sky. It was filled with piercingly cold killing intent, and its entire body was condensed from sword chi. The ground cracked open as a soaring snake bathed in boiling lava soared into the sky. Its entire body was burning with flames as it raised its head and hissed. Su Zimo condensed a sword art and slashed forward, directly slashing out a dragon snake. Looking at the two terrifying divine beasts, the remaining soldiers of the wolf army were ashen. Their eyes were filled with despair. Divine dragon and soaring serpent circled around the vicious wolf army and began a massacre, hunting down some of the vicious wolf army soldiers who were lucky enough to escape from the celestial slaughter sword rain. Shrill screams rose and fell one after another. The remaining wolf army had already been severely injured by the heaven-slaying sword chi, and now that they were being chased by the divine dragon and soaring serpent, they were practically powerless to retaliate. The sword rain poured down and a blood mist spread. The two divine beasts, soaring serpent and soaring serpent, rampaged through the sword rain. Amidst the misty rain, a green-robed man stood in midair with a calm expression with one hand behind his back. This scene was like a painting, making people feel that it was somewhat unreal. After about half an incense's time, there was no more sound on the battlefield. The rain stopped and the divine beasts dissipated, leaving only corpses all over the ground. Including more than 400 black-scaled fiend wolves, the remaining vicious wolf army were all dead without a single survivor. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and released his spirit consciousness, collecting all the dermic treasures of the vicious wolf army. Although he could not use those dermic treasures, they seemed to be of considerable value on Dragon Abyss Planet. Su Zimo collected all the storage bags of the vicious wolf army and opened them to take a look. Almost all of those storage bags were filled with essence-nurturing herbs, rain flowers, and many essence condensation pills. On the Dragon Abyss Star, these were all extremely precious cultivation resources. Su Zimo gathered all the immortal herbs and essence condensation pills in the storage bags and did a rough count. This time he obtained more than 1 million stalks of essence-nurturing herbs and rain flowers and more than 13,000 essence condensation pills. According to the exchange standard of Xiangu, more than 2 million stalks of immortal herbs were equivalent to more than 20,000 essence condensation pills. In other words, Su Zimo obtained a total of more than 30,000 essence condensation pills from killing the vicious wolf army. If he were to include the dozens of vicious wolf army members he killed previously, the number of essence condensation pills he obtained would most likely reach 40,000. This was not a small windfall. In the entire Snow Wind Ridge, only 100,000 stalks of immortal herbs were collected in 10 years, which could be exchanged for 1,000 essence condensation pills. However, Su Zimo obtained 40,000 pills in one go this time round. Su Zimo looked at the corpses all over the ground and shook his head slightly. It was no wonder why some of the cultivators and living beings who ascended would choose to join these bandits to kill and loot. This method was indeed much faster than obediently planting immortal herbs. At that moment, the sky gradually darkened. Su Zimo prepared to leave and meet up with Xia Qingying and the others from Snow Wind Ridge. Just as he moved, he seemed to have thought of something and turned back to look at the corpses of the vicious wolf army, deep in thought. Xiangu. In a tall and imposing hall, Chen Xianyang took off his armor and sat in the middle of the hall in a brocade robe. On his left were some Xiangu cultivators. On his right were Xia Qingying and Liang Qiu. The other cultivators from Snow Wind Ridge had also been settled down. At that moment, night gradually fell. The hall was brightly lit. On the table in front of Xia Qingying and the others were many spirit fruits and wine, as well as some delicious delicacies cooked with the flesh of demonic beasts. Every time the people from Snow Wind Ridge came to Xiangu to exchange for essence condensation pills, they would stay here for a night. That was because it was already evening when they arrived in Xiangu. If they rushed back to Snow Wind Ridge overnight, it was easy for some accidents to happen. And every time, Chen Xianyang would set up a banquet in Xiangu to welcome Xia Qingying. This time, Snow Wind Ridge had defeated a great enemy, so the banquet prepared by Xiangu was even more sumptuous. However, Xia Qingying sat at the table with her brows slightly furrowed. She barely touched her chopsticks and was a little absent-minded. Liang Qiu, who was beside her, was eating heartily without a care. From time to time, he would raise his head and look at Chen Xianyang with a strange expression. Xia Qingying had other thoughts and did not notice this scene. After a long time, he smiled slightly and said, "Qing, do you have something on your mind?" This time, Snow Wind Ridge survived a disaster. You should be happy. Why are you still frowning? Xia Qingying forced a smile and did not reply. She looked at the sky outside and sighed in her heart. Chen Xianyang suddenly asked, "Qingying, are you still thinking about that person?" Xia Qingying was silent for a while before she mustered her courage and said, "Xianyang, I know that this request is a little overboard, but I still want to ask if Zuyanggu can lead some people to help my guards." Chapter 1811. Chen Xianyang put down his wineglass. His expression did not change as he asked, "Qingying, he's just a guard, a rank 4 mystic immortal. Why are you so worried about him?" Xia Qingying said, "It's all because of him that everyone in Snow Wind Ridge survived this time. If, Missy." At this moment, Liang Qiu suddenly said, "Have you never doubted his identity?" "Doubted what?" Xia Qingying was slightly stunned. Liang Qiu said in a deep voice, "This person's background is unknown. He said that he came from the lower realm, but when he ascended, his cultivation was already a rank 4 mystic immortal. This is because he passed the 49 heavenly tribulations." Xia Qingying explained. Liang Qiu sneered and said, "Missy, do you really believe his nonsense? If he passed the 49 heavenly tribulations, it's impossible for him to descend on Dragon Abyss Planet. He said that there was an accident, but he did not explain in detail. Because he has no way to explain it. What kind of accident could happen during the tribulation?" Chen Xianyang looked at this scene with a smile in his eyes, but he was not in a hurry to speak. Xia Qingying frowned and fell into deep thought. Liang Qiu subconsciously looked at Chen Xianyang. Chen Xianyang nodded slightly, indicating for him to continue. Liang Qiu was shocked and said, "Missy, think about it again. He's a rank 4 mystic immortal, but he wants to hide his cultivation and come to Snow Wind Ridge for? It's only a day's journey from Snow Wind Ridge to Zuyanggu today, but we encountered the wolf army. How can this be a coincidence? Someone must have tipped him off. This person is Su Zimo. He's the spy of the wolf army." Hearing this, Chen Xianyang said, "Commander Liang's words make some sense. Qingying, you can't judge a book by its cover. This person has only been in Snow Wind Ridge for a year. He's really not worthy of your trust." Xia Qingying shook her head and said, "You said that Guard Su is a spy. How is that possible? He killed the leader of the wolf army and forced them to retreat. Everyone saw this with their own eyes." "Eldest miss, this is obviously a ruse." Liang Qiu argued forcefully, "Su Zimo must have a bigger plan. It's very likely that he's plotting to take over the entire Wind Snow Ridge. Furthermore, it was because of this that he was able to gain the trust of the first young lady." Xia Qingying shook her head slightly, still in disbelief. Liang Qiu continued, "Eldest miss, think about it. If you don't control the demon beast, how can you catch up with the black scale fiend wolf? But this Su Zimo chased after him. This time, he is definitely not going to hunt down the vicious wolf army. Instead, he is going to discuss an even bigger scheme with the remaining vicious wolf army members." "What scheme? Tell me about it." At this moment, a voice came from outside the hall. 3 people walked towards the main hall. The one in the middle was dressed in a green robe and had delicate features. It was Su Zimo. The 2 people beside him were the guards of Wind Snow Ridge who were standing guard in the distance. One of the guards smiled at Xia Qingying. "Missy, bodyguard Su is back." When Xia Qingying saw that Su Zimo had returned, her eyes lit up and she was overjoyed as she stood up to welcome him. A hint of gloom flashed through the depths of Chen Xuanyang's eyes. "Bodyguard Su, are you all right?" Xia Qingying's gaze circled around Su Zimo as she asked worriedly. Su Zimo smiled gently. "Thank you for your concern, Missy. I'm fine." Chen Xuanyang's gaze turned towards Liang Qiu, who was at the table. Liang Qiu understood and suddenly slammed the table and stood up. He pointed at Su Zimo and shouted, "Su Zimo, how dare you come back? If I didn't come back, I'm afraid I would be labeled as a spy." Su Zimo scoffed coldly. Xia Qingying turned around and stared at Liang Qiu with a frown. "Liang Qiu, stop talking. Bodyguard Su can't be a spy." "I believe him. Qingying." Right then, Qin Xianyang stood up slowly and came closer. He glanced at Su Zimo and said, "I think that Commander Liang's words are not without reason. One must be wary of others." This person just arrived at Snow Wind Ridge and the evil wolf army appeared nearby. The two might be related. Su Zimo looked at Qin Xianyang with a faint smile and did not say a word. He could sense that there were many experts hidden in the surroundings of this great hall. Apart from rank 5 mystic immortals, there were also a few rank 6 mystic immortals. Furthermore, this Qin Xianyang in front of him was a rank 6 mystic immortal expert. Normally speaking, with Su Zimo's cultivation realm, it was impossible for him to investigate the surrounding situations so clearly. However, Su Zimo's essence spirit was formed by the fusion of the Dragon Phoenix essence spirit and Qinglian's essence spirit. It had already undergone an astonishing transformation. His essence spirit realm had far surpassed his cultivation realm and had already reached the rank 6 mystic immortal realm. Of course, Su Zimo was in Ziyanga now. Even if he knew that Qin Xianyang was behind today's incident, he could not fall out with Qin Xianyang openly. As one of the 8 major forces of Dragon Abyss Planet, Ziyanga was filled with hidden talents. If he were to fall out with Ziyanga today, even he might not be able to leave alive, let alone the people of Snow Wind Ridge. Liang Qiu pretended to ask, "Young Master Chen, in your opinion, how should we deal with Su Zimo?" "In my opinion, we should kill him directly to prevent future trouble." Xia Qingying's expression was cold as she rejected flatly. She stared at Liang Qiu with an unfriendly expression. She could tell that Liang Qiu was obviously using his position to take revenge. If she returned to Snow Wind Ridge this time, she would definitely punish Liang Qiu severely. Liang Qiu did not dare to look at Xia Qingying. He had long known his situation. He would probably be punished if he returned to Snow Wind Ridge this time. When he arrived in Ziyanga this time, he had already secretly looked for Qin Xianyang. That was why there was a scene at the banquet today. Qin Xianyang smiled and said, "It's too arbitrary to kill him directly. In my opinion, it's better to detain this person temporarily and interrogate him to find out his background and identity before making a decision." Qin Xianyang was smiling on the surface, but his heart was already filled with killing intent. If he really detained Su Zimo, he would have the final say on how to deal with him. Xia Qingying still shook her head and refused. Su Zimo suddenly said, "Are you suspecting that I have something to do with the wolf army?" "That's right." Liang Qiu sneered. "Don't think that killing dozens of people from the wolf army can prove your innocence. Is that so?" Su Zimo smiled at Liang Qiu and said in a sinister tone, "I didn't kill dozens of people from the wolf army." At that point, Su Zimo paused for a moment and suddenly opened a storage bag. With his spirit consciousness, he moved everything out of the storage bag. Instantly, the entire hall was filled with blood qi. The corpses of hundreds of people from the wolf army and hundreds of black-scaled fiend wolves were all piled up in the hall, dripping with blood in a shocking manner. Every single one of them died tragically. Some were severed into 2. Some of their bodies were riddled with holes from the sharp weapons. Some had their eyes wide open in death. Those people's eyes were filled with deep fear before they died. No one knew what they had experienced. Pissed. Everyone in the main hall was shocked, and they sucked in a breath of cold air. End of chapter. Chapter 1812. Nothing was more convincing than these 400-odd corpses of the evil wolf army. When these bloody corpses were moved to the main hall by Su Zimo, all of Liang Qiu's suspicions and slander against him seemed vulnerable. This scene also brought about a huge shock to everyone. 500 members of the evil wolf army were completely wiped out without a single survivor. Was this done by this weak-looking green-robed scholar in front of them? Even with Qin Xuanyang's shrewdness, his expression changed drastically. He knew in his heart that Su Zimo's move was not only to prove his innocence, but also to establish his authority. This person was telling him not to provoke him. How is this possible? Liang Qiu's confidence faltered as he forced a smile. Why are just a rank 4 mystic immortal? How can you kill so many members of the evil wolf army? Xia Qingying took a deep breath and calmed the shock in her heart. She looked at Liang Qiu coldly and questioned in a deep voice, Liang Qiu, what else do you have to say? Liang Qiu looked a little flustered and instinctively looked at Chen Xianyang, wanting to say something. Chen Xuanyang's expression darkened and a murderous intent flashed through his eyes. He suddenly struck and slapped Liang Qiu's head with a backhand. Bang! Brains splattered. Liang Qiu's eyes widened in disbelief. They were extremely close to each other, and he had not expected Chen Xianyang to attack him. Instead, Chen Xianyang had gone for the kill. Not only did that palm crack his skull, it even scattered the essence spirit in his sea of consciousness. Chen Xianyang naturally would not allow Liang Qiu to reveal the collusion between the two of them. As a rank 6 mystic immortal, apart from Su Zimo, no one present could react to his attack at this distance. Su Zimo naturally would not save Liang Qiu either. Thump! Liang Qiu's corpse fell straight into a pool of blood and his eyes were wide open even in death. Chen Xianyang, what are you doing? Xia Qingying reacted and asked loudly. Chen Xianyang retracted his hand and gently wiped it. His expression was calm as he said, Qingying, this person has ulterior motives. He actually wants to frame Imperial bodyguard Su, who has performed a meritorious service this time. He almost deceived me. I don't feel at ease leaving such a despicable person by your side. I know you're soft-hearted. Today, I'll kill him for you. No matter how wrong Liang Qiu is, he is still a member of my Snow Wind Ridge. You. Xia Qingying clenched her fists slightly, her expression furious. Chen Xianyang smiled and said, Qingying, with a powerhouse like Guard Su in Snow Wind Ridge, he can replace Liang Qiu as the commander of Snow Wind Ridge. As for Liang Qiu, he deserved to die. After pausing for a moment, Chen Xuanyang's gaze turned toward Su Zimo and asked with a smile, what do you think, bodyguard Su? Others might not be able to see it, but Su Zimo's heart was as clear as a mirror. The reason why Chen Xianyang was so decisive to kill Liang Qiu in front of everyone was not only because he was worried that the latter would spout nonsense, but more importantly, it was to establish his authority. He brought out more than 400 corpses of the wolf army to intimidate everyone in Ziyang. This eldest young master of Ziyang killed Liang Qiu in front of him with a single palm strike. This eldest young master was telling Su Zimo that he could kill him as easily as killing this person. On the surface, it seemed calm between the two of them. However, there were sabers and swords behind them. They had already exchanged a move. You must be joking, young Master Chen. Faced with Chen Xuanyang's threat, Su Zimo was naturally unmoved and said indifferently, after today, I'll be leaving Wind Snow Ridge. I truly can't take on the role of the commander of the guards. Chen Xuanyang's eyes lit up, thinking that his display of authority had worked. He nodded in satisfaction and said, that's a pity. Fellow Taoist Su, why are you leaving? Xia Qingying was a little anxious and did not care about the presence of others. She hurriedly asked, although Liang Qiu slandered you, I've never doubted you. Given the great merit you've made today, as long as we return to Wind Snow Ridge, I'll report it to my father truthfully and he'll definitely reward you handsomely. With your capabilities, you're also qualified to take on the role of the commander of the guards. That's right. A Wind Snow Ridge guard at the side said, Guard Su, although you've only been in Wind Snow Ridge for a short period of time, you've saved everyone this time. We're all convinced by you. Su Zimo shook his head slightly and said, I'm used to being lazy and don't like to be restrained. I can't take on the role of the commander of the guards. I've already disturbed everyone by staying in Wind Snow Ridge for a year. Even if today's incident did not happen, I was prepared to bid farewell to everyone and go somewhere else. Xia Qingying frowned and said, but it's not safe outside Dragon Abyss Planet. You're alone, eldest young mistress, I've made up my mind. Su Zimo said indifferently. Since he had already said so, Xia Qingying could no longer persuade him and could only sigh softly in her heart. Actually, the most important reason why Su Zimo wanted to leave this time was because he had killed 500 members of the Wolf Army and had become enemies with the Wolf Army. Normally speaking, if all the members of the Wolf Army were dead, the other members of the Wolf Army would not know who did it. However, the Wolf Army and Xianggu were obviously in cahoots. This matter could not be hidden at all. If he continued to stay in Wind Snow Ridge, he would bring a disaster to Wind Snow Ridge. At least with his current cultivation, he was still unable to fight against Xianggu and one of the 4 great bandits, the Wolf Army. Thus, he could only choose to leave. Chen Xianyang patted Xia Qingying's shoulder lightly and comforted her softly. Qingying, everyone has their own aspirations and cannot be forced. If Wind Snow Ridge lacks manpower, I can send some strong practitioners over. That's not necessary. Thank you, young Master Chen. Xia Qingying shook her head. Unknowingly, the way she addressed Chen Xianyang had changed, and there was more distance between them. Chen Xianyang did not mind. He waved his hand and said, "Men, clean up the corpses of the Wolf Army. The banquet will continue." "Young Master Chen, I'm a little tired. I'll go and rest first," Xia Qingying said, then looked at Su Zimo and said, "Fellow Taoist Su, follow me. I have something to tell you." Su Zimo nodded and followed her. Chen Xianyang looked at the two of them as they left, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he chuckled. Not long after, the two of them had already arrived at the resting area of Wind Snow Ridge. Xia Qingying bit her lips lightly and suddenly raised her head. "Fellow Taoist Su, I know that you chose to leave because you are worried that you will implicate Wind Snow Ridge." Su Zimo was slightly stunned, and a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. He did not expect that this young miss of Wind Snow Ridge would be able to see through his intentions so quickly. Su Zimo did not say anything, which was a tacit agreement. Xia Qingying said, "Actually, you don't have to do this at all. I'll go back and report today's matter to my father. We can definitely plan for the long term and make preparations in advance to discuss a foolproof plan to deal with the Wolf Army." Although Xia Qingying said that, she also knew that if the Wolf Army really launched a large-scale attack, Wind Snow Ridge would definitely be destroyed. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 1813. To be fair, Su Zimo was only a rank 4 mystic immortal. To Feng Shuling, he was not considered to be the strongest. The overlord of Feng Shuling was a rank 6 mystic immortal, and the protectors under him were rank 5 mystic immortals. But for some reason, Xia Qingying had an inexplicable feeling in her heart, like a sixth sense, that this green-robed man was very important to her and Feng Shuling. Very important. If this person left, it would be a huge loss to Feng Shuling. That was why she wanted to keep Su Zimo as much as possible. Su Zimo only shook his head slightly. Seeing that Su Zimo was determined to leave, Xia Qingying could only sigh. The two of them stood facing each other and were silent for a while. Xia Qingying seemed to have thought of something and took out a storage bag. She handed it to Su Zimo and said, "Fellow Taoist Su, the storage bags of the dozens of Wolf Army soldiers that you killed are all inside. You can keep them." Su Zimo thought about it and did not refuse. Actually, even if Xia Qingying kept these storage bags for herself, he would not think too much about it. He was leaving because he wanted to leave something for Feng Shuling. Su Zimo took the storage bag and checked it with his divine perception. The things in these storage bags were not much different from the storage bags of the other Wolf Army soldiers. They were all Dharma treasures, immortal herbs, and essence condensation pills. Su Zimo kept the immortal herbs and essence condensation pills. He was about to return the remaining Dharma treasures and weapons to Xia Qingying when he suddenly had a thought. Just now, his palm accidentally touched a storage bag. The bronze square cauldron that was originally quiet and motionless in his sea of consciousness actually vibrated strangely. Su Zimo frowned slightly and picked up the storage bag to examine it. "This is the storage bag of that small leader," Xia Qingying said. Su Zimo nodded and kept this storage bag. Then he stuffed all the Dharma treasures he collected from the Wolf Army into a storage bag and handed it to Xia Qingying. "Fellow Taoist Su, What are you doing? Xia Qingying was at a loss. More than 500 profound rank magic treasures. Although they were all mystic low-grade weapons, it was still an unimaginable amount of wealth to Feng Shuling. One had to know that more than half of the profound immortals in the Snow-Wind Ridge did not have a profound rank magic treasure. Even the guards of Snow-Wind Ridge only had a little more than 100 people with Dharma treasures. If Feng Shuling could get his hands on these magical equipment, his overall strength would rise to a whole new level. Take it. Su Zimo smiled. These profound rank magic treasures were practically useless to him. His 9th grade Qinglian true body completely destroyed a low-grade profound rank Dharma treasure. This is too precious. Xia Qingying still could not believe it and did not dare to accept it. Su Zimo smiled and said, "This is what you deserve. Don't forget, when I first arrived on the Dragon Abyss planet, you gave me a bottle of healing pills and a dust removal talisman." Xia Qingying's eyes reddened slightly. She didn't expect that Su Zimo would still remember her small action back then. Moreover, he even gave her such a huge return. In terms of value, any low-grade profound rank Dharma treasure was enough to exchange for hundreds of thousands of bottles of those pills and dust removal talismans. Su Zimo spread out his divine sense and carefully checked the surroundings. After not noticing anyone spying on them, he said, "Don't worry. Although I've left Snow-Wind Ridge, I won't be able to leave the Dragon Abyss planet in a short period of time. Keep this message talisman well. If anything dangerous happens to Snow-Wind Ridge, tear this talisman and I'll know." Su Zimo took out a message talisman from his storage bag and handed it to Xia Qingying. "Okay." Xia Qingying pursed her lips slightly as a hint of reluctance flashed across her eyes. She said, "Brother Su, you have to take care too." Su Zimo waved his hand casually and was about to turn and leave when he suddenly paused and said in a low voice, "I have to remind you of something. Be careful of Qin Xianyang." It was not good for him to say that Qin Xianyang colluded with the Wolf Army. After all, he did not have any evidence. Even if he said it, it would only be a one-sided story. He could only remind Xia Qingying. Xia Qingying nodded. Su Zimo saw that Xia Qingying's expression was normal, as if she had expected it. He could not help but be slightly surprised and asked, "You already knew?" "I was just suspecting it before," Xia Qingying said. Xia Qingying said, "Qin Xianyang appeared not long after you left. This is too much of a coincidence. Also, you were so determined to leave. It seems that you are sure that the Wolf Army knows about this. 500 Wolf Army soldiers are all dead. The only one who can leak the news is Zhianggu." Su Zimo nodded slightly as a hint of praise flashed across his eyes. The woman in front of him was very smart. She could actually detect something amiss from the clues. It was really rare. What was even rarer was that Xia Qingying had already suspected Qin Xianyang, but she did not show it and did not show it. If Xia Qingying really fell out with Qin Xianyang and Zhianggu, she would probably be in trouble immediately, and Feng Shuling would also not be able to survive. If Xia Qingying did not point it out, Qin Xianyang would continue to be complacent and continue to pretend. "Brother Su, when are you planning to leave?" Xia Qingying asked. "Do you want to leave with us tomorrow?" Xia Qingying was worried that Zhianggu, or rather, Qin Xianyang, would harm Su Zimo. After all, today's matter was because of Su Zimo's appearance that Qin Xuanyang's plan was ruined. However, if Su Zimo left with Feng Shuling's group, Qin Xianyang would not be able to make a move openly. "We'll see." Su Zimo replied ambiguously. After a pause, Su Zimo continued, "I might go to Feng Shuling to take someone away. I hope you can agree." "No problem." Xia Qingying nodded without hesitation. Su Zimo turned around and left, waving at Xia Qingying with his back facing her. Xia Qingying watched as Su Zimo entered a room before leaving reluctantly. Late at night, Su Zimo did not rest. After returning to his room, he directly took out the storage bag of the leader. He was very curious about what was in this storage bag that could cause the bronze square cauldron to react. He spread out his divine consciousness and forcefully erased the divine consciousness imprint on the storage bag before opening it to take a look. There were no immortal herbs in this storage bag, but there were about 10,000 essence condensation pills, which was almost equivalent to the total number of spirit pills carried by the other members of the wolf army. Su Zimo kept these essence condensation pills and continued to check. Apart from the essence condensation pills, there were also a few profound-grade Dharma treasures in the storage bag. The best one was only a mid-grade profound-grade Dharma treasure. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Even if it was a mid-grade profound-grade Dharma treasure, it would not catch his eye. Right then, Su Zimo's gaze shifted and he exclaimed softly. In the corner of the storage bag, he saw a gray broken sword. The broken sword was dull and did not have any sharpness. The broken sword was filled with cracks and was clearly a piece of trash. However, when Su Zimo picked up the broken sword, the bronze square cauldron vibrated once more. End of chapter. Chapter 1814. Su Zimo examined the broken sword carefully with his spirit consciousness but could not find anything special about it. He pondered for a moment and threw the broken sword into the bronze square tripod. The interior of the bronze square tripod became boiling hot once more, emitting an extremely terrifying power as it began to smelt the broken sword. The entire process was done by the bronze square tripod on its own. After about an hour, the broken sword was completely refined by the bronze square tripod, turning into a dark gray liquid. The bronze square tripod began to absorb the power of the broken sword. Su Zimo focused his gaze. The other shattered tripod walls of the bronze square tripod did not show any signs of recovery. The power of the broken sword was still flowing towards the intact tripod wall with the divine dragon. All of a sudden, the divine dragon on the outer wall of the bronze square tripod suddenly opened its eyes. The man and dragon looked at each other. A divine light seemed to burst out from the eyes of the divine dragon and entered Su Zimo's eyes. Su Zimo shuddered. In the next moment, a secret technique appeared in his mind. 9 true dragon flashes? Su Zimo muttered subconsciously. The true body of the dragon phoenix had browsed through many ancient books of dragons in the Dragon Bone Valley of Tianhuang mainland, but he had never seen a similar secret technique. This was clearly a secret technique of the dragons of the upper realm. Strange, the inner wall of this bronze square tripod has Sanskrit of the Buddhist cultivation technique, but the outer wall has the secret technique of the dragons. Su Zimo was increasingly curious about the origin of the bronze square tripod. However, at that moment, he did not have the mood to think about it. He immediately memorized the secret technique of the 9 true dragon flashes and comprehended it bit by bit. After about 4 hours, Su Zimo finally let out a long breath. This secret technique of the dragons was extremely mysterious and complicated. If a real human or other person were to cultivate it, they might need decades or even centuries to comprehend it. However, Su Zimo's essence spirit had the dragon phoenix essence spirit. Comprehending this secret technique of the dragons was twice the result with half the effort. In just 4 hours, he had already comprehended something. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and released the secret skill. With a flash, he vanished from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already outside the room. Su Zimo's eyes flashed with joy. This secret technique should be a top-notch movement technique of the dragons, with a total of 9 levels. Once it was released, it would produce an effect similar to teleportation, disappearing from one's original location and blinking to another location. Of course, the distance of the flicker wouldn't be too far. Teleportation was a peerless ability. In the upper realm, in order to unleash a peerless divine ability, one's cultivation base had to be at the divine origin stage, which was the legendary divine immortal. As for the 9 true dragon flashes, just by cultivating to the first level, one would be able to derive a movement technique that was similar to teleportation. If he could cultivate to the second level, he would be able to flash twice in a row. If he could cultivate it to the peak, he would be able to flash 9 times in a row. Su Zimo had fought countless battles in Tianhuang mainland. He knew very well what this identity meant for him in battle. On the ever-changing battlefield, possessing such a strange and unpredictable movement technique would allow one to have absolute control over the situation. After 4 hours of cultivation, Su Zimo had already cultivated to the first level. Su Zimo gazed at the bronze square tripod and fell into deep thought. At that moment, The divine dragon on the outer wall of the bronze square tripod closed its eyes once more. The Prajna Nirvana Sutra was incomplete. If Su Zimo was not wrong, there was a high chance that there were remaining Sanskrit engraved on the other 3 inner walls. Did that mean that there would be 3 different secret skills on the other 3 outer walls of the bronze square tripod as well? What sort of changes would occur if he repaired the bronze square tripod completely? Ever since he transcended the tribulation and ascended, Su Zimo had a feeling that the bronze square tripod seemed to possess its own sentience, as though it was a living being. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. As though he sensed something, he put away the bronze square tripod and turned to look at the darkness in the distance with a bright gaze. Before long, a figure walked out slowly from the darkness and approached. It was the eldest young master of Xiangu, Chen Xianyang. "Brother Su, you have sharp senses." Chen Xianyang smiled gently and nodded to Su Zimo, praising him. Su Zimo did not fall for it at all and asked with a calm expression, "Young Master Chen, why are you here so late at night?" Chen Xianyang smiled. "During the banquet, I heard that Brother Su wants to leave Snow Wind Ridge. I love making friends the most in my life. If Brother Su doesn't have a place to go, why don't you come to Xiangu? Although you're a grade 4 mystic immortal, your status in Xiangu will definitely not be weaker than a grade 5 mystic immortal." "Young Master Chen thinks too highly of me," Su Zimo said faintly. "However, I'm a lazy person and don't like to be restrained. I'm afraid I can't stay in Xiangu." Chen Xianyang laughed and said, "It's fine. Since Brother Su is unwilling, I won't force you. However, the door of Xiangu will always be open for Brother Su. As long as you're willing, you can come back at any time." Su Zimo looked indifferent and did not say a word. He did not even bother to reply. Chen Xuanyang's expression was the same as usual. He smiled and nodded before turning to leave. The moment he turned around, his face had already turned gloomy. As the eldest young master of Xiangu and a grade 6 mystic immortal, he had personally invited a grade 4 mystic immortal. It could be said that he was giving Su Zimo enough face. He did not expect this person to be so tactless. The moment Su Zimo rejected him, Chen Xianyang was already enraged. However, due to his shrewdness, he did not show it. Chen Xianyang left Su Zimo's residence and walked towards his own bedroom. He didn't walk far before a faint shadow appeared in the darkness behind him. "Young master, how should we deal with this person?" the shadow asked in a low voice. Chen Xianyang stopped in his tracks. His eyes were cold and emitted a murderous aura. He said slowly, "This person has some tricks up his sleeves. He's smart and brave. If he can't be used by me, I can only kill him." "Understood," the shadow replied. Chen Xianyang said, "Keep a close eye on him. Only attack when he goes out alone. Don't let Qing Ying and the people from Feng Shueling see him." After pausing for a while, Chen Xianyang said, "Also, bring a few more people with you. Don't make any mistakes. This person can destroy hundreds of the wolf army and kill Bosco. He must have some tricks up his sleeves." "Don't worry, young master," the shadow said. "I've heard from Liang Qiu that this person killed Bosco by surprise. If it's a head-on fight, this person definitely won't be able to kill a grade 5 mystic immortal. You may leave." Chen Xianyang waved his hand. The shadow gradually disappeared in the night. In the vast night, outside Su Zimo's room, a few more shadows gradually appeared. They were like ghosts in the night, difficult to detect. In the room, Su Zimo slowly opened his eyes. A cold light flashed across his eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he murmured, "They're here." End of chapter. Chapter 1815. In fact, when Su Zimo was talking to Chen Xianyang, his spiritual sense had already sensed Chen Xuanyang's killing intent. He did not expect Chen Xianyang to move so quickly. Of course, this was Xiangu. Xia Qingying and the others from Feng Shueling were still living nearby. Chen Xianyang wanted to maintain his image and would not make a move here. These people who were hiding here were probably here to keep an eye on him. These people were very far away and seemed to be well hidden, but they could not hide from Su Zimo's perception. One had to know that Su Zimo's primordial spirit had already reached the level of a stage 6 mystic immortal. Even if he did not use his divine sense, his spiritual sense, including his powerful 5 senses, could sense the abnormalities around him. Su Zimo sneered slightly. After thinking for a while, he floated down from the bed. Since these people were in Ziyanggu and could not make a move, he would create an opportunity for them to make a move. The shadow was Chen Xuanyang's personal guard, a stage 5 mystic immortal. He had ascended 20,000 years ago and almost died in the chaotic world outside. He was saved by Chen Xianyang and survived. His life was given to him by Chen Xianyang. From that day onwards, he followed Chen Xianyang and became Chen Xuanyang's shadow. All these years, he had helped Chen Xianyang kill countless people. He was very familiar with this kind of thing. The person he wanted to kill this time was a little special. Although he was a stage 4 mystic immortal, he seemed to have some tricks up his sleeve. He did not dare to be careless. In order to completely kill this person without any accidents, he brought 6 stage 5 mystic immortals. Including him, there were 7 stage 5 mystic immortals. 7 stage 5 mystic immortals besieging a stage 4 mystic immortal. This was not a small lineup. "Boss, he's out." A cultivator beside the shadow sent a message with his divine sense. The shadow narrowed his eyes slightly and looked over. The cyan-robed cultivator pushed open the door and identified the direction. Then he quietly left without alerting anyone. It was as though he wanted to leave quietly. "Boss, this person probably wants to leave by himself without alerting the people of Wind Snow Ridge." A Ziyanggu cultivator transmitted his voice. Another person said, "Boss, should we follow them?" The shadow sneered and transmitted his voice. "This is a rare opportunity. Tonight, we'll send this brat on his way. Everyone be careful. Don't let him discover you." "Understood." The other 6 Ziyanggu stage 5 mystic immortals replied. The 7 shadows hid in the darkness and watched Su Zimo from afar. They followed behind him, and before long, they were out of Ziyang. Su Zimo gradually increased his speed. The 7 shadows followed closely behind. The shadow sneered. The entire process had been extremely smooth. The person in front of him hadn't noticed anything at all. They were gradually getting away from Ziyanggu. Even if there was a big commotion here, it wouldn't alert the people of Ziyanggu. Only then did the shadow signal the others. The remaining 6 people understood and spread out, surrounding the figure in front of them. The shadow also approached quietly. At this moment, the figure in front of them gradually slowed down. In the end, he actually stopped. Then the person turned around. His eyes were like torches, unusually bright in the dark night. He was actually looking directly at the shadow. The shadow was slightly stunned. He had been discovered. Since he had been exposed, the shadow no longer hid. With a mocking expression, he walked out of the darkness and stared coldly at Su Zimo, who was not far away. "It's too late for you to realize it now." The shadow sneered. As soon as his voice fell, 6 figures gradually appeared not far from Su Zimo, completely blocking his way. 7 stage 5 mystic immortals surrounded Su Zimo. This was supposed to be a sure kill. But for some reason, the shadow suddenly felt uneasy. This person who had been surrounded and couldn't escape seemed to be too calm. In Su Zimo's eyes, the shadow couldn't see any panic or fear. It was as if this person had already known everything in front of him. The shadow suddenly thought of a terrifying speculation. Could it be that this person had already noticed their tracks and deliberately came here to lure them? At this moment, Su Zimo smiled and said, "It's too late for you to realize it now." As soon as his voice fell, Su Zimo's figure suddenly retreated. His body was filled with a magical power, and his speed was astonishing. Heaven's feet and earth's vertical golden light burst out at the same time. The stage 5 mystic immortal behind Su Zimo didn't have time to react. He felt a figure flash in front of him, and Su Zimo directly crashed into him. Crack, crack. The horrifying sound of bones cracking was heard. The stage 5 mystic immortal's chest caved in deeply. The next moment, a bloody hole appeared between his eyebrows. His primordial spirit was destroyed, and he died on the spot. At this point, this person's eyes were wide open, and there was disbelief in his eyes. The shadow reacted immediately and screamed. Even if he realized that Su Zimo had deliberately lured them here, he still had to attack. He didn't believe that the remaining 6 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals couldn't kill a Stage 4 Mystic Immortal. Su Zimo's figure rushed forward again, leaving behind a series of afterimages. He arrived in front of a Stage 5 Mystic Immortal and suddenly shouted, "Thunderclap kill!" At such a close distance, the sound domain secret technique unleashed was extremely destructive. This Stage 5 Mystic Immortal's Dharma treasure had just been used, and his magical power had just been condensed, when he heard a thunderous explosion. This person's body shook violently, and his mind went blank. His eyes became dull. Scarlet blood seeped out of his ears, nostrils, and the corner of his mouth. Bang! Su Zimo's palm slammed down. This person's forehead shattered, and his primordial spirit was directly shattered by Su Zimo's palm. He fell on his back. In just 2 breaths of time, 2 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals were dead. Bush, 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 bush. Several Mystic Immortal treasures slashed through the void aggressively, making a heart-palpitating sound as they enveloped Su Zimo. Su Zimo waved his sleeves and suddenly raised a handful of yellow sand, enveloping all the Mystic Immortal treasures. The yellow sand surged, squeezing and rubbing against each other. Numerous cracks instantly appeared on these profound rank magic treasures. In the blink of an eye, they were destroyed by the living soil of the 9 heavens and squeezed into a pile of fragments. "You want to kill me with this little trick?" Su Zimo sneered, and with a backhand punch, he shattered a magical power that was coming at him. He strode forward and shouted, "I am Araki Takashi, and I shall suppress everything." Su Zimo casually pointed and instantly pierced the glabella of a Stage 5 Mystic Immortal. The 3rd Stage 5 Mystic Immortal had fallen. The remaining 4 people were dumbfounded, and their eyes were filled with shock. Just now, this person had actually shattered a magical power with his flesh and blood. Shadow's eyes finally revealed a trace of fear. Chapter 1816. Although the person in front of them was only a Stage 4 Mystic Immortal, he exuded an unstoppable aura. Shadow and the other 3 were shocked. In the lower realm, they were also powerful figures. However, after ascending to the upper realm, after so many years, their sharpness had long been worn away. They knew very well that in the upper realm, even on this remote Dragon Abyss planet, they were just unknown characters. But the person in front of them was different. This person exuded an invincible aura of sharpness. "I am Araki Takashi, and I will suppress everything." The everything in this sentence was not referring to the few of them, but to the experts on this Dragon Abyss planet, and even to the experts in the upper realm. A person with such boldness was either a madman or a real ruthless person. At least, they could not afford to offend him. Seeing that Su Zimo easily killed the 3 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals, Shadow already had the intention to retreat. No, only the eldest young master can kill this person. This thought flashed through Shadow's mind. He commanded the remaining 3 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals and shouted, "You guys stop him." After saying this, Shadow was about to leave the battlefield. But just as he turned around, he saw a blur in front of him, and there was another person in front of him. This person was wearing a green robe and had delicate features. He was looking at him with a smile. Shadow's pupils shrank to the size of a needle, and all the hair on his body stood up. How could this be? Before Shadow turned around, he clearly saw that this person was blocked by the other 3 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals. How could he appear in front of him in the blink of an eye? Was this teleportation? Shadow's eyes flashed with shock, fear, confusion, and confusion. The next moment, his vision turned black, and he felt a sharp pain in his head. He completely lost consciousness. The remaining 3 Stage 5 Mystic Immortals were also shocked. They unleashed their fiercest attacks, but all their magic treasures, magical powers, and secret techniques missed. Su Zimo had actually disappeared from the spot. When they came to their senses, they saw Su Zimo attack and kill Shadow with one palm. True Dragon's 9 flashes. Although Su Zimo could only blink once at the moment, it had already displayed an extremely terrifying effect in battle. Su Zimo turned around and looked at the remaining 3 people. His gaze was calm as he smiled faintly. This seemingly weak and refined scholar was like a devil in the eyes of the 3 of them. The 3 of them felt their blood run cold. Without thinking, they turned around and fled. Su Zimo activated his primordial spirit and unleashed 2 small divine arts at the same time. Normally speaking, a cultivator could only activate and release 1 divine ability at the same time. However, Su Zimo's primordial spirit was now the fusion of Qinglian's primordial spirit and Dragon Phoenix's primordial spirit. He could completely release 2 divine abilities at the same time. Hell Dao. Hungry Ghost Path. 2 Buddhist divine arts erupted and landed on the heads of the 2 stage 5 mystic immortals. Beside one of them, the scene changed drastically. Countless ghostly figures flashed, eerie and terrifying. Blood chi filled the air, and it was completely dark. The Hell Dao was the most ferocious of the 3 great evil Daos. Once one fell into it, it was as if they had fallen into an endless abyss. It was difficult to break free, and they would be haunted by countless vengeful ghosts. Their vitality would be devoured and they would die. The stage 5 mystic immortal hurriedly released a small divine ability in an attempt to fight against the Hell Dao. However, it did not last long before his small divine ability was devoured by the Hell Dao. The person stood on the spot as if he had fallen into a frenzy. He let out a shrill cry and was quickly drowned by the vengeful ghosts. At the same time, the Hungry Ghost Path descended on the other stage 5 mystic immortal. Around the stage 5 mystic immortal, many hungry ghosts appeared. They stretched out their long scarlet tongues and were as thin as firewood. With bloodshot eyes, they pounced on him. Bang, bang, bang. This person attacked continuously, releasing immortal arts and divine abilities. He used his Dharma treasures to suppress the many hungry ghosts. However, the hungry ghosts were endless. They appeared continuously and pounced on him crazily, munching on his flesh and blood. Although the 3 great evil Daos of the 6 great evil Daos were small divine abilities, they were used to punish those who were extremely evil and were extremely cruel. Not long after, the 2 stage 5 mystic immortals died under the 2 evil Daos. Su Zimo frowned slightly. His current cultivation was only at the stage 4 mystic immortal. Although his primordial spirit was at the stage 6 mystic immortal level, the power of the small divine abilities should not exceed that of a stage 5 mystic immortal by much. The reason he released these 2 small divine abilities was to trap the 2 of them and then kill them. He did not expect that the power of these 2 small divine abilities was much stronger than Su Zimo had expected. They actually killed the 2 stage 5 mystic immortals. It's the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind, and he quickly thought of the reason. After cultivating this Buddhist cultivation technique, when he executed Buddhist divine abilities again, the power would increase. This was only an incomplete version. The Prajna Nirvana Sutra was more powerful than Su Zimo had imagined. Su Zimo put away his thoughts and did not continue to think about it. There was still a stage 5 mystic immortal who had escaped. He could not let that person return to Zuyangu. Su Zimo channeled his primordial spirit once more and released another divine ability. A pair of gigantic wings grew slowly behind him. They were golden in color and shone with the resplendent light. They were beautiful and flawless. This was the extreme speed divine ability of the golden-winged great roc. This divine ability was obtained by the Dragon Phoenix true body from cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness and was an innate divine ability. Even though Su Zimo was only at the mystic essence realm right now, he could release his innate divine abilities at will without any restrictions. With a flash of golden light, Su Zimo's figure vanished from the spot. Initially, the stage 5 mystic immortal thought that he had escaped with his life. However, he did not expect to feel his scalp tingle before he could get far, as though he was targeted by an extremely terrifying living being. Instinctively, he turned back to look. That single look scared him out of his wits. His legs went weak and he almost fell to the ground. Unknowingly, Su Zimo had already arrived behind him and was inches away from him. I was just lacking a mount. You're the one. Channeling his primordial spirit, Su Zimo extended his finger and tapped the stage 5 Mystic Immortal gently, releasing another minor divine ability. Beast Dao. The power of a divine ability descended upon that person. The stage 5 Mystic Immortal's figure transformed at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, he had already shed his human form and turned into a tall and mighty yellow dog. Initially, Su Zimo wanted to turn him into a warhorse. However, just now, he caught sight of a yellow dog scurrying past him from the corner of his eye. That single moment of distraction caused a mistake in the divine ability. Dog it is then. As long as it can run, it's fine. Su Zimo clapped his hands and leaped onto the back of the yellow dog. Patting the dog's head, he said, "Let's go. Let's go to Snowwind Ridge." How could the stage 5 Mystic Immortal endure such humiliation? Instantly, his blood surged as he cursed. Boof, boof, boof. The moment he opened his mouth, a series of barks erupted before he could say a single word. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 1817. As soon as he spoke, he was stunned. His eyes were filled with tears and his face was filled with grief and indignation. "Let's go, don't dawdle." Su Zimo patted the dog's head and said, "If it weren't for the lack of a mount, you would have died like those people." The big yellow dog recalled the miserable state of his companions before they died just now and could not help but shudder. No matter what, as long as he could survive, he would have a chance to escape. With that thought, the big yellow dog was prepared to submit to Su Zimo first and find another opportunity to escape. At that thought, the big yellow dog bared his teeth and ran towards Snowwind Ridge. Su Zimo sat on the big yellow dog and opened the storage bags of the 7 shadows. He could not help but laugh when he took a look. There were quite a lot of things in the storage bags of the 7 shadows. Other than a few magic treasures, there were a few cultivation methods and immortal skills. There were more than 20,000 core coagulation pills. Including the 10,000-odd pills that he had collected from the ferocious wolf army, he had close to 40,000 essence formation pills on him. In addition, there were many immortal herbs in the storage bags of these people. In addition to the immortal herbs collected from the evil wolf army, there were more than 3 million in total. Even if he exchanged them in Xianggu, he could exchange them for 30,000 core coagulation pills. If he could go to Longyuan City, he could even exchange them for 300,000 core coagulation pills. Of course, Su Zimo had no use for these immortal herbs at the moment. Just 40,000 soul-solidifying pills were enough for him to cultivate for a period of time. When the sky was slightly bright, Su Zimo arrived at Snowwind Ridge riding on the big yellow dog. This time, Su Zimo did not alert anyone. He sneaked into Snowwind Ridge quietly and came to the wooden house that he used to live in. At that moment, a fat man was lying at the door and sleeping soundly. It was Duan Tianliang. Su Zimo came this time to take Duan Tianliang away. This person knew his secret and could not stay in Snowwind Ridge. He could either kill this person to silence him or take him with him. In addition, Su Zimo was preparing to leave Wind Snow Ridge, and he lacked someone to take care of chores like the spirit fields. Duan Tianliang was a suitable candidate. Duan Tianliang was sleeping soundly when he suddenly felt a warmth on his face. It was as if something soft and moist was brushing against his face. He subconsciously opened his eyes and saw a big yellow dog licking his face with its wet tongue. F***CKU. Where did this wild dog come from? Duan Tianliang cursed and jumped up from the ground. He immediately became energetic. After Duan Tianliang got up, he patted his storage bag without hesitation and took out a big black iron ball. He raised it above his head and shouted, "Wild dog, look at your grandpa's million-weight ball." Suddenly, Duan Tianliang was stunned when he saw Su Zimo on the big yellow dog. "Boss." Duan Tianliang blinked and then realized something. He coughed lightly to cover up his embarrassment and said with an embarrassed smile, "Boss, why are you back so early in the morning?" "Hee hee, I didn't know it was you." Duan Tianyang kept the million-weight ball and went forward to praise. Boss, where did you get this mount? It's really unusual. Duan Tianyang wanted to reach out and touch the big yellow dog's head. The big yellow dog bared its teeth and stared at Duan Tianyang with an unfriendly expression. Oh, you're quite hot-tempered. Duan Tianyang sneered and scanned the big yellow dog with his divine sense. Mystic Origin Stage 5. Duan Tianyang was shocked. Su Zimo was only at Mystic Origin Stage 4. How could he have thought that a mount's cultivation realm was higher than its master's? Duan Tianyang took a few steps back and smiled flatteringly. Boss, you have good taste. This mount looks extraordinary. It must have a noble bloodline and belongs to the best of the dog race. Duan Tianyang was proud. His words were quite particular. Not only did he praise Su Zimo, he also praised the big yellow dog. Unexpectedly, the moment Duan Tianyang finished speaking, the big yellow dog became anxious and barked at Duan Tianyang. It almost jumped up and bit Duan Tianyang. The big yellow dog was originally a level 5 mystic immortal in Xianggu. It was not a dog race. Naturally, it was furious when Duan Tianyang said that. Stop it! Su Zimo frowned and patted the big yellow dog's head. The big yellow dog whimpered and did not dare to make a sound. It could only bare its teeth at Duan Tianyang and show a fierce look. Duan Tianyang was even more confused. He did not know how his words had provoked the big yellow dog. Su Zimo said, I've already said goodbye to Miss and am ready to leave Snow Wind Ridge. Duan Tianyang was stunned for a moment. He blinked and asked tentatively, Boss, do you need someone by your side? Do you want to bring me along? Su Zimo nodded and said, I came back this time to bring you along. Duan Tianyang complained in his heart, but his face was wild with joy. He said, How can I, Duan Tianyang, be trusted by boss so much? Enough. Su Zimo interrupted him and said, Pack up and get ready to leave. But Duan Tianyang agreed readily and ran away. Su Zimo patted the big yellow dog and walked in the direction of another spiritual field. Not long after, he saw another wooden house. At this time, a middle-aged man was carefully pushing the door open. It was Lao Yen. When Su Zimo first arrived at Snow Wind Ridge, the first person he met was Lao Yen. Although the two of them did not know each other much, Lao Yen told him a lot of things and took care of him. Su Zimo remembered all these. Brother Su? Lao Yen looked up and was slightly stunned when he saw Su Zimo not far away. The dog barking just now had woken him up. He got up and was about to go out to take a look, but he did not expect to bump into Su Zimo. Brother Su, didn't you go to Xianggu with Missy? Why are you back so early? Lao Yen went up and asked in surprise. Su Zimo nodded and said, I came back alone. This time, I'm also here to say goodbye to you. But are you leaving, Brother Su? Lao Yen said, You've just been promoted to Missy's personal guard. Why are you leaving so soon? Did you have a conflict with Commander Liang? Back then, everyone saw the enmity between Liang Qiu and Su Zimo. Su Zimo shook his head slightly and did not say much. Everyone would know about this when Xia Qingying returned. Su Zimo said, Lao Yen, here's a cultivation technique for spirit concentration. I'll give it to you. Su Zimo took out a cultivation technique from his storage bag and handed it to Lao Yen. This cultivation technique was obtained from Xianggu's shadow. Lao Yan's hands trembled slightly. In order to obtain such a cultivation technique, he had to save up spirit concentration pills for tens of thousands of years before he could exchange for one. And now, Su Zimo gave him such a valuable cultivation technique. End of chapter. Chapter 1818. Brother Su, this is too precious. Lao Yan's face was a little red, and his hands were trembling slightly as he held the spirit concentration technique. It's nothing. Su Zimo smiled and said, I don't have any use for this technique by my side. Just accept it. What's wrong? At this moment, a woman pushed open the door and asked softly. Lao Yen looked excited as he handed the technique to the woman and said, Look, this is the spirit concentration technique that Brother Su is giving to our child. When the woman saw the technique, she was also shocked and exclaimed softly. Over the past year, Su Zimo had heard Lao Yan mention her before. This should be Lao Yan's Dao companion, Ningyu. The two of them did not ascend at the same time, but they came from the same small kiliacosm. It was also a rare fate for them to be able to meet in Snow Wind Ridge. Later on, they became Dao companions in Snow Wind Ridge. Ningyu seemed to have thought of something and said, "Quick, give all the condensing pills that you've accumulated over the years to Brother Su." Yes. Old Yen snapped to his senses as well and hurriedly took out a storage bag, handing it to Su Zimo. "Brother Su, these are the essence-gathering elixirs that I've accumulated over the years. There's more than 700 of them, there's no need." Su Zimo shook his head slightly and said, "Consider this a small gift from me to my nephew before I leave this time." Lao Yen pondered for a moment and said, "All right, since Brother Su said so, I'll accept it shamelessly. In the future, if Brother Su has any orders, I'll definitely go through fire and water." "Brother Su, you're leaving and you haven't seen Little Pingon. Come and take a look," Ningyu said with a smile. Little Ping, and was Old Yan's child's nickname. Both he and Ningyu hoped that their child could grow up peacefully and live out his life peacefully. Su Zimo nodded and followed Lao Yan and Ningyu to the door of the room. Lao Yan opened the door and saw an exquisite cradle made of green bamboo in the middle of the room. A child of 2 or 3 years old was sleeping in it. His face was red, and his pink little fists were tightly clenched. This child was Lao Yan's only hope. Su Zimo didn't enter the room. He only paused at the door for a moment before retreating. He then took out 2 more profound rank magic treasures from his storage pouch and handed them over to Old Yen and Old Yen. "Brother Su," Lao Yen was completely stunned. He couldn't believe it. Although these 2 Dharma treasures were only low-grade profound rank, they were still extremely valuable treasures to them. "Take it." Su Zimo smiled lightly and threw down the 2 profound rank magic treasures, then he turned around and mounted Big Yellow before galloping back the way he came. Not far away, Duan Tianliang was running towards them. "Let's go. Follow me," Su Zimo said as he led the way out of Wind and Snow Ridge. Duan Tianliang trotted behind him. Big Yellow was still holding a grudge against Duan Tianliang, so he ran fast on purpose. Duan Tianliang followed behind and almost broke his legs. Su Zimo scolded the Big Yellow dog to slow down so that Duan Tianliang had a chance to catch his breath. "Boss, does this mount of yours have a name?" Duan Tianliang finally caught up with him and asked while panting. "No," Su Zimo said. "I think it should be called Big Yellow," Duan Tianliang said maliciously. "Woof." Big Yellow barked at Duan Tianliang furiously with a sorrowful expression. "Sure." Su Zimo nodded. Duan Tianliang winked at Big Yellow and sneered secretly. "You little beast, you still want to fight with me?" "Boss, where are we going?" Duan Tianliang asked again. Su Zimo said, "There's no place on Dragon Abyss planet where there are no forces gathered." Su Zimo was prepared to find a secluded place to cultivate in seclusion. Right now, he had close to 40,000 essence condensation pills in his storage pouch, which was enough for him to cultivate for a long time. There were still many unknowns about Dragon Abyss planet and the upper realm. However, he had to raise his cultivation as soon as possible to have enough strength to explore these unknowns. Duan Tianliang thought for a moment and said, "More than half of Dragon Abyss planet is actually a wilderness filled with all sorts of living beings and ferocious beasts. It's extremely dangerous and no one would go there. Of course, those living beings and ferocious beasts would not dare to come out easily either." Su Zimo said, "All right, let's go take a look at the wilderness." After saying that, Big Yellow, who was beneath Su Zimo, had a look of joy in its eyes. The wilderness was filled with all sorts of living beings, strong and weak. There were all sorts of living beings and danger lurked everywhere. It was said that some of the plants in the wilderness could even eat humans. If Su Zimo were to head to the wilderness, he would definitely die there and Big Yellow could find an opportunity to escape. "That's right, I must bite that fatty to death before I escape." At that thought, Big Yellow was invigorated and headed towards the wilderness. At the same time, Chen Xianyang frowned with a dark expression. As soon as he sent the people of Wind Snow Ridge away, he learned that Su Zimo had left in the middle of the night. There was still no news of Shadow and the others chasing after him. Eldest young master. At that instant, a subordinate rushed toward Chen Xianyang with a panicked expression. He dropped to his knees and said while panting, "Shadow and 6 other rank 5 mystic immortals are dead." What? Chen Xuanyang's eyes flickered coldly as his entire being was filled with a murderous aura. The person said, "According to my understanding, Shadow sent 7 rank 5 mystic immortals from Ziyanggu to hunt down Su Zimo. Now, 6 of them are dead and their storage bags have been taken away. The last one is missing." Well. Chen Xianyang clenched his teeth and said coldly, "Su Zimo, well done. I've underestimated you." "Eldest young master, what should we do?" the Ziyanggu cultivator asked. Chen Xianyang said coldly, "Pass down my order. Search for Su Zimo. I can't do it. No force in Ziyanggu will take him in. Also, keep an eye on Wind Snow Ridge." "Understood." The Ziyanggu cultivator replied and left. What Chen Xianyang did not know was that Su Zimo had already left Blood Sun Valley's territory on Big Yellow and was heading towards the wildlands where no one had set foot in. The 2 of them and the dog ran for 7 days before they arrived at the edge of the wilderness. In front of them was a dense forest with many ancient trees that towered into the sky. It was dark and gloomy inside, and it was filled with an ancient and savage aura. Big Yellow stared with his eyes wide open. He looked uncertain and fearful, and he stopped moving forward. Duan Tianliang swallowed his saliva and asked, "Boss, why don't we settle down outside? I can build a cave for you in a few days." "Let's go." Su Zimo looked calm as he patted Big Yellow's head. His tone was calm, but there was no room for doubt. Big Yellow cursed in his heart, but he could only force himself to move forward into the forest. Duan Tianliang followed at the back with a cautious look. Chapter 18-19. Su Zimo rode on Big Huang and entered the forest slowly. Due to the lush foliage of the ancient trees that covered the skies, there was almost no sunlight in the forest and the surroundings were dark and quiet. The ground was covered with many branches and leaves. Beneath their feet, there were rustling sounds that were extremely clear in the quiet environment. Big Huang's footsteps slowed down. For some reason, there was an extremely strange aura in the forest that caused one to feel extremely stifled. Duan Tianliang followed behind Big Huang with a pale face. He looked around nervously and a thin layer of sweat had already formed on his forehead. The forest was extremely quiet and there were no living beings or ferocious beasts to be seen. However, Big Huang and Duan Tianliang felt increasingly uneasy. Snap! Suddenly, a crisp sound came from beneath Duan Tianliang's feet. It was extremely ear-piercing in the forest. Duan Tianliang froze and looked down instinctively. Beneath his feet, he was actually stepping on a piece of broken white bone. It was unknown how many years had passed since this white bone appeared to be extremely fragile. With just a light step, it broke into 2 pieces. Just now, the bone was covered by many leaves. Duan Tianliang's attention was focused on his surroundings and he did not notice what was beneath his feet. It's fine. Duan Tianliang calmed himself down and forced a smile as he continued walking forward. However, he had not taken 2 steps when the sound of bones cracking could be heard beneath his feet once more. He stepped on another piece of white bone. Duan Tianliang's expression changed. "Boss, hold on for a moment." Duan Tianliang said softly and looked around. Conjuring hand seals and waving his sleeves, a few whirlwinds were formed in the surroundings, blowing the fallen leaves on the ground. When the fallen leaves floated up, Duan Tianliang and Big Huang were shocked when they saw what was on the ground. The ground of the forest was filled with white bones that stretched as far as the eye could see. "Pissed!" Duan Tianliang gasped. How dangerous was this place for so many living beings to die here? "BB boss, let's retreat." Duan Tianliang's voice was trembling slightly. Before he could say anything, Big Yellow could no longer withstand the fear. Even without Su Zimo's order, he had already begun to retreat. However, he had only taken a few steps when he realized that his path of retreat had been completely sealed off. Those originally motionless branches seemed to have a life of their own. They were like thick spiritual snakes that intertwined together, sealing off their retreat. The ancient trees suddenly emitted a bloody aura. On the surface of the ancient tree, there were faint vein-like patterns that flowed with scarlet blood. "It's over! My life is over!" Duan Tianliang looked terrified and disheartened. The ancient trees in this forest actually relied on devouring living beings to cultivate and grow. There were all sorts of strange things in the 3,000 worlds. Over the years, this dense forest had devoured countless living creatures and ferocious beasts. None of the ferocious beasts that were trapped in this place would be able to leave alive. All of them would have their flesh and blood completely devoured. From the beginning to the end, Su Zimo sat calmly on Big Yellow's back. His spirit perception was way too strong. Long before he entered this forest, he had already sensed that there was something strange about it. The scene before his eyes was within his expectations. When he saw the many emerald green branches coiling toward Su Zimo, Duan Tianliang and Big Yellow, Su Zimo suddenly spoke. "It's not easy for the plant race to cultivate," Su Zimo said slowly. "I don't want to destroy your cultivation. Don't make things difficult for me either." The branches paused for a moment. Then, these ancient trees actually emitted a feeling of mockery. Even Big Yellow and Duan Tianliang could sense it. The next moment, even more branches tore through the air and coiled toward Su Zimo like emerald green venomous snakes. "Since that's the case, don't blame me." Su Zimo floated down from Big Yellow's back. Stepping on the ground with both feet, he channeled his blood qi and seemed to have vanished. Replacing him on the spot was an emerald green Qinglian that soared into the skies. It shone with a resplendent glow that dyed the heavens in a bedazzling manner. Instantly, the many branches paused and shrunk instinctively, as though they had seen something terrifying. "Absorb!" Su Zimo channeled his blood qi and countless roots and branches extended from his feet, burrowing into the ground. They coiled around the ancient trees in the dense forest and absorbed their life essence wildly. The Qinglian was the only creation in the world and was the god of the plant race. Back in Tianhuang mainland, the experts of the blood vine race wanted to devour Su Zimo's bloodline, but they were devoured instead. Those ancient trees were far from being as strong as the blood vine race. That was essence stealing. In the plant race, if they grew at the same time, the stronger plants would steal the essence of the other plants. For example, the reason why the spirit farmers had to weed frequently in the spirit fields was because they were worried that the weeds would steal the essence of the essence-nurturing grass and rainflower and affect the growth of the two immortal herbs. But now, the grade 9 creation Qinglian was absorbing the surrounding essence in the dense forest, and the ancient trees could not defend against it at all. Under the watchful gazes of Big Yellow and Duan Tianliang, the dense branches that extended towards them were the first to wither and droop. Immediately after, the towering ancient trees in the surroundings turned yellow bit by bit and their life force drained rapidly as well. Originally, this dense forest was like a sea of green. However, it didn't take long before the green sea began to turn yellow and eventually spread to the entire forest. In that withered yellow ocean, only the center region shone with a resplendent glow. There, a creation Qinglian was swaying and glowing. Unlike cultivators of Tianhuang mainland, Duan Tianliang and Big Yellow had never heard of the legend of the creation Qinglian. However, at that moment, both of them realized that the Qinglian before them was definitely a heaven-defying existence. Within a few hours, the dense forest withered completely. All the ancient trees died because Su Zimo stole their essence. Su Zimo's figure appeared once more as he heaved a long sigh of relief. After absorbing and refining the essence of the dense forest, his cultivation realm had improved by quite a bit as well. The creation Qinglian was way too domineering. If he did not control it and allowed the Qinglian's true body to steal the essence of the surrounding plants to grow and cultivate, all the plants on Dragon Abyss planet would be devoured by him. Of course, Su Zimo did not dare to cause such a huge commotion. Duan Tianliang was already dumbfounded. Big Yellow stood at the side and shivered as well. Initially, he was still thinking of finding an opportunity to escape. But now, he had already given up on that thought. The scholar with delicate features in front of him was like a devil. He could refine him with just a thought. His fate would probably be similar to the withered trees around him. End of chapter. Chapter 1820. The two of them and the dog continued venturing deeper into the wilderness. The wilderness was a place where all sorts of living beings gathered. Apart from the various ferocious beasts, there were also some strange and powerful races. The region was extremely chaotic with all sorts of living beings fighting one another. Almost no human cultivators were willing to step foot into this place. Right now, the combination of Su Zimo, Duan Tianliang and Big Yellow was extremely unique and attracted the attention of many living beings. However, when Su Zimo absorbed and refined the forest previously, he caused quite a commotion and many living beings witnessed it. Living beings with high cultivation and combat strength did not dare to provoke him recklessly and merely followed from afar. As Su Zimo ventured deeper, the strength of the ferocious beasts he encountered increased as well. Along the way, there were already many ferocious beasts gathered nearby. There were hundreds of them and their numbers were increasing as they surrounded Su Zimo's group. Duan Tianliang and Big Yellow had witnessed Su Zimo's methods before. However, they still felt nervous and shivered upon experiencing such a situation. The ferocious beasts before them were not just now. There were many ferocious beasts here that even Duan Tianliang and Big Yellow had not seen before. In the skies ahead, a gigantic bird floated. It was scarlet and burned with flames. It had 9 heads and exuded a scorching aura. Even though they were 1,000 feet apart, Duan Tianliang and Big Yellow could still feel waves of heat surging towards them. The 9-headed bird glared at Su Zimo's group maliciously. In fact, its body was even dripping with boiling lava. It was extremely terrifying. On the other side, a gigantic ferocious beast stood proudly among the demon beasts. The ferocious beast had a human face and a horse's body. It seemed to be the legendary pure-blooded ferocious beast, Ing Zhao. Behind the three of them, an ear-piercing buzzing sound could be heard. Duan Tianliang turned back and his heart skipped a beat. Not far behind the three of them, there was a huge wasp. It was several times bigger than him, and its wings were vibrating rapidly in the air, making a buzzing sound. There was a poisonous stinger protruding from the tail of this giant wasp. It looked like a long spear, glowing with a dark green light and emitting a foul stench. It was obvious that it was highly toxic. The three beasts were all at the 5th level of the mystic origin stage. More and more ferocious beasts like this were gathering in the surroundings. Most of the ferocious beasts didn't have high cultivation realms. Most of them were rank 1 and rank 2 Shen demons, while some were rank 3 and rank 4. However, if these beasts were to attack together, even a 5th or 6th level mystic origin stage cultivator might not be able to withstand them. In an instant, the three of them would be torn to pieces. Let's do it here. Su Zimo looked around. If they continued to go deeper, it was very likely that they would encounter even more powerful creatures. However, this place was already far away from the major forces, so there shouldn't be anyone who would discover them. Screech! The 9-headed bird at the front reared its head and let out a long screech at the same time. It was extremely ear-piercing and almost pierced through metal and stone. The surrounding ferocious beasts roared one after another with ferocious gazes. Almost at the next moment, they were about to pounce forward. Duan Tianliang's face was pale as he took out a round black ball from his storage bag with a trembling hand. He was on the verge of tears. Big Yellow was so scared that his legs went limp and he almost collapsed to the ground. Right then, Su Zimo stood up slowly and hovered in midair, emitting a shuddering aura. That aura was completely different from the creation Qinglian from before. Berserk, ferocious, scorching, and noble. After this aura was revealed, the surrounding demons revealed a hint of confusion in their eyes. The 9-headed bird, Ing Zhao, and the giant wasp were bewildered as well. Suddenly, Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly and he suddenly opened his mouth. Roar! A roar that shook the world and intimidated all the demons spread in all directions. It was like the roar of a dragon and the cry of a phoenix. It contained a supreme will that could not be resisted at all. Against that roar, some of the demon beasts with weak bloodlines and low cultivation could not withstand the pressure and knelt on the ground one after another. That was the roar of a taboo dragon phoenix. Even the descent of a divine dragon was enough to frighten all the demon beasts before them, let alone a dragon phoenix. Although the nine-headed bird, Ing Zhao, and the giant wasp were at level 5 Mystic Essence realm and could maintain their composure, the aura that Su Zimo exuded caused the 3 ferocious beasts to feel immense pressure. That was a suppression that came from bloodline. No matter how strong a rooster was, it could not defeat a phoenix. No matter how ferocious a cat was, it would tremble in fear against a ferocious tiger. That was the suppression of bloodline. Although Su Zimo did not have the bloodline of a dragon phoenix, his essence spirit contained the dragon phoenix essence spirit and could release the will of a dragon phoenix. That will was enough to intimidate most demons. Scram! Just as the nine-headed bird and the other demons hesitated and stopped in their tracks, a deafening roar sounded from afar. A living being spoke in the human tongue and strode over. Boom, boom, boom. The ground trembled. On the distant horizon, an incomparably tall giant was sprinting over. He had a pair of eyes and no nose on his face. Instead, he had a gaping mouth. The giant shone with a silver luster, as though it was made of molten steel. It was filled with a metallic luster and looked invulnerable. That's the giant race. Duan Tenliang was shocked and hurriedly said, "In my small kiliacosm, the giant race was the strongest race and reigned supreme throughout history. The giant race had boundless strength and could fight against dragons in melee. That silver luster is clearly a silver giant with an extremely noble bloodline of the giant race." Duan Tianliang's spirit consciousness swept across the silver giant and his expression turned even uglier. Level 6 Mystic Essence Realm. The giant race was the strongest among the various living beings, let alone a silver giant that was at level 6 Mystic Essence Realm. There was no chance of survival. As the silver giant charged over, the demons retreated. Even the nine-headed bird, Ing Zhao, and the giant hornet made way. Some of the demon beasts that could not dodge in time were trampled to death by the silver giant. They exploded into a bloody mist and did not even have a corpse left. "Ant, how dare you enter my territory?" The silver giant had a ferocious expression as he roared at Su Zimo, "I'm going to crush all of you." Silver giant with boundless strength? Su Zimo's blood chi surged. He was fearless and his eyes were like torches as he shouted, "Let's see how strong you are." Swoosh! Su Zimo moved. Facing the level 6 Mystic Essence Realm silver giant, he actually made the first move and charged forward. The giant race is clumsy and isn't agile enough. Don't fight him head-on. Duan Tianliang hurriedly shouted, but it was too late. Su Zimo had already made his move. "You're courting death." The silver giant was enraged. He reached out a palm that shone with a silver luster and slammed it down at Su Zimo. Big Yellow bared his teeth, as though he could see Su Zimo being smashed into a bloody mist. Duan Tianliang narrowed his eyes and did not even dare to look. Chapter 1821. The silver giant's palm was spread open and covered the skies. Against the silver giant's attack, Su Zimo gripped his fists tightly and his blood chi surged as he released a punch with all his might. Su Zimo did not release any movement techniques to deal with the silver giant. This time, he wanted to test what kind of level a 9th grade Green Lotus true body could reach below the 4th level of the Mystic Origin stage. Boom! A deafening sound echoed from midair. Immediately after, the silver giant took a step back and almost fell. The demons were in an uproar. In the eyes of the ferocious beasts, Su Zimo was as insignificant as a speck of dust compared to the silver giant. However, that speck of dust was able to force the silver giant back when it collided with its palm. What sort of power was that? A look of shock flashed through the silver giant's eyes as well. Even he had not expected that this ant before him would be able to release such ferocious power. Boss isn't dead? Duan Tianliang opened his eyes with a look of disbelief. Woof woof woof. De Huang was elated as well and barked wildly to boost Su Zimo's momentum. He was already tied to Su Zimo a long time ago. If Su Zimo could win this battle, he would be able to survive as well. If Su Zimo lost, he would be torn to shreds by the ferocious beasts that were eyeing him covetously as well. That's all there is to your strength. Su Zimo stood in midair and looked at the silver giant not far away with an indifferent expression. Die! The silver giant actually strode forward and stomped its gigantic feet on the ground. Clenching its palm into a fist, it punched towards Su Zimo viciously. Su Zimo was fearless and charged forward once more. Boom! The two fists collided and the world shook. The silver giant retreated once more. Su Zimo did not give the silver giant any time to catch his breath and attacked consecutively with Qinglian's terrifying regeneration abilities. Bang! 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 The silver giant retreated continuously and shuddered. The demons were dumbfounded. One had to know that the silver giant was the overlord of this region. Even the nine-headed bird, Ing Zhao, and the giant wasp were under his rule. Never had he imagined that it would actually be the 6th-level profound origin realm silver giant that fell into a disadvantageous position in this battle and was completely suppressed. However, all the demons could tell. Although Su Zimo had the upper hand, it was almost impossible for him to kill the silver giant. The silver giant kept retreating, but its body was indestructible. Silver light flickered on its body, and it was barely injured. You do have some tricks up your sleeve. The silver giant could still speak in the middle of a great battle. He grinned and said, "However, your strength is only so. You can't hurt me at all." At this point in the battle, Su Zimo had already probed. At the 4th level of the mystic origin stage, Qinglian's strength would definitely be comparable to that of a 6th-level mystic origin stage cultivator. The silver giant was a special species. If it were any other self-cultivator, Qinglian could even suppress a level 6 mystic immortal with her full strength. At that thought, Su Zimo no longer wanted to tangle with the silver giant. The silver giant struck once more, punching towards Su Zimo. Shoo! Suddenly, a green beam of light shot out from Su Zimo's glabella. A bronze square cauldron that was 5 feet tall appeared. 3 sides were shattered and only one side was intact, exuding an ancient and mysterious aura. "Are you going to use your Dharma treasure?" The silver giant laughed loudly. "The fists of the giant tribe are the strongest weapons." The silver giant was right. The silver light that flowed around his body could even defend against the power and sharpness of most Dharma treasures. The golden giant of the giant tribe had an even more terrifying bloodline. The golden light around his body could even condense into a weapon to kill his enemies. Su Zimo's expression was cold. Without arguing, he lifted the bronze square cauldron and smashed it towards the silver giant's fist. Crack! The ear-piercing sound of bones cracking could be heard. A woo! Immediately after, the silver giant's expression changed starkly as it let out a tragic cry. Clutching its wrist, it stumbled back. The demons could clearly see that the silver giant's fist was dented by the bronze square cauldron and was badly mangled. "Why your lousy cauldron?" The silver giant glared at the bronze square cauldron that looked a little tattered in Su Zimo's hands, and its bell-like eyes were filled with fear. "Suppress!" Su Zimo hollered and lifted the bronze square cauldron, smashing it towards the silver giant once more. The silver giant wanted to dodge backwards. However, there was no way it could dodge due to its massive body and lack of agility. Helpless, the silver giant could only raise its arm to defend. Snap! The sound of bones cracking could be heard once more. The silver giant's arm was snapped by the bronze square cauldron. The broken bones were stained with silver blood. Flesh and blood hung from them, exposed to the outside world. It was a ghastly sight. The silver giant let out a painful roar. Su Zimo tossed the bronze square cauldron above the silver giant's head. As long as he used his spirit consciousness, the bronze square cauldron would smash down. At that time, a bloody hole would be created in the head of the silver giant. "Submit or die." Su Zimo's tone was cold and domineering, not giving the silver giant any other choice. "We are giants. We are giants." The silver giant had an indignant expression, as though it wanted to struggle and resist. However, he did not continue. Under Su Zimo's suppression, his aura weakened. Submit. A moment later, the silver giant finally lowered its head and half knelt on the ground towards Su Zimo. The demons were shocked when they saw that. One had to know that the giants wouldn't kneel easily. They would only kneel to their leader or golden giants with an even more noble bloodline. Now that the silver giant chose to kneel and submit to the demons, there was no way it would betray them. Roar! Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and suddenly opened his mouth. Facing the demons, he let out another dragon phoenix roar with a torrential aura. Previously, the silver giant was extremely far away and could not truly sense the aura of the roar. It was only at this moment that the silver giant's heart skipped a beat. It raised its head and its eyes shone with fear. The aura and bloodline of this seemingly insignificant human seemed to be even more noble than it. Against the roar of the dragon phoenix, the demons bowed one after another. Led by the nine-headed bird, Ing Zhao and giant wasp, hundreds and thousands of ferocious beasts and demons lowered their heads and knelt towards Su Zimo in midair. At that moment, Su Zimo seemed like the lord of all demons. It was an extremely shocking scene. Duan Tianliang and Big Yellow were dumbfounded. Against that momentum, for some reason, Duan Tianliang could not control his legs and knelt on the ground. Big Yellow was already sprawled there obediently, wagging its tail rapidly and looking at Su Zimo with a fawning expression. End of chapter. Chapter 1822. Su Zimo settled down in this barren land and opened up a spirit farm nearby for Duan Tianliang to manage. Normally speaking, the rainflower and essence-nurturing grass on Dragon Abyss planet ripened once every 100 years. However, as long as Qinglian's true body came to absorb the essence qi of heaven and earth for cultivation, it would attract extremely dense essence qi to gather here. The two types of immortal herbs would mature within a year. The other ferocious beasts, including the silver giant, nine-headed bird, Ing Zhao and the giant bee all obeyed Su Zimo's orders and surrounded this area. Even if someone passed by this place, it would be difficult for them to notice that such a pure land was hidden in the midst of the demons. Su Zimo arranged everything and entered seclusion to cultivate. This time round, he had gained a lot after killing 500 soldiers of the Wolf Army and Zuyanggu's shadow. There were close to 40,000 essence-gathering elixirs alone. Su Zimo was prepared to absorb and refine all 40,000 essence-gathering elixirs before making any plans. Normally speaking, the medicinal power of a single essence-gathering elixir was enough for an ordinary mystic immortal to cultivate for more than 10 days or even a month. This also depended on the cultivation realm of the mystic immortal, the cultivation technique they cultivated and their innate talent. For example, Duan Tianliang was only a stage 2 mystic immortal. A single essence-gathering elixir was enough for him to cultivate for more than 2 months. Although De Huang was a stage 5 mystic immortal, he still needed more than 20 days to completely absorb the medicinal power of a single essence-gathering elixir. However, it was different for Su Zimo. After arriving at Dragon Abyss planet, this was the first time Su Zimo consumed a essence-gathering elixir to cultivate. During this cultivation, he was shocked to discover that Qinglian's true body was like a bottomless pit as it absorbed the essence qi of heaven and earth madly to refine the medicinal power of the essence-gathering elixir. With the true body of a rank 9 Qinglian, there was no need to worry about her body being unable to withstand absorbing too much essence qi of heaven and earth. Furthermore, back in Tianhuang mainland, because he only had a mortal body, even if he cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, it would be difficult for him to change his physique rapidly. Therefore, Su Zimo was extremely cautious and only consumed perfect-grade elixirs. It was because of this that he was able to succeed the human emperor and reach the undefeatable realm of the foundational level. And now, rank 9 Qinglian's true body did not have to worry about that at all. There were indeed a lot of impurities in the soul-condensing pill. If too many of these impurities were consumed, it would definitely cause some subtle effects on the body. However, the 9th grade Qinglian's true body had seized the fortune of heaven and earth, baptizing her own flesh and blood all the time. After swallowing a core condensing pill, other than the pure medicinal power of the core condensing pill, the other impurities would be expelled from the body by Qinglian's true body. Su Zimo could cultivate without restraint. Coupled with the strength of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, Su Zimo could even swallow and digest 10 origin condensing pills in a day. Under such circumstances, Su Zimo's cultivation was steadily increasing. And while Su Zimo was cultivating, Duan Tianliang and Big Yellow had also obtained unimaginable benefits. The heaven and earth essence qi in the vicinity was extremely dense. Not only did the growth of the two types of immortal herbs increase by 100 times, the cultivation speed of Duan Tianliang and Big Yellow increased significantly as well. Initially, Big Yellow followed beside Su Zimo because he was intimidated by the latter's methods and did not dare to leave. But now, even if Su Zimo punched and kicked him, he would not leave. He had decided to stay by Su Zimo's side and not leave at all. Before long, the silver giant, nine-headed bird, Ing Zhao and giant wasp sensed the abnormality of this place and gathered over carefully. When the few ferocious beasts saw that Su Zimo did not object, they were secretly delighted and cultivated fervently. There was no cycle in the mountains and no time in cultivation. In the blink of an eye, 10 years passed. In the past 10 years, there were fewer killings and fights in this wilderness and it became extremely peaceful. Occasionally, there would be some disturbances in the surroundings, but they would be quickly suppressed by the silver giant and the other ferocious beasts. Although Su Zimo rarely showed himself and was almost always cultivating, the silver giant, nine-headed bird, Ing Zhao, giant wasp and the other ferocious beasts respected Su Zimo more and more. To be able to gather the heaven and earth essence qi, such a method was truly terrifying and beyond their understanding. In the past 10 years, their cultivation had also improved greatly. The improvement was even more obvious than when they had cultivated for 100 years or even a few hundred years. Su Zimo was in seclusion in this wilderness and did not know that in the past 10 years, Zuyanggu and the evil wolf army had been searching for him everywhere. The evil wolf army had even issued a bounty for his head. Just his whereabouts and news alone were worth 10,000 essence condensing pills. The price of his head was as high as 100,000 essence condensing pills. 100,000 essence condensing pills was enough to tempt any mystic immortal. Even Stage 8 and Stage 9 mystic immortals could not ignore such a temptation. Even so, after a few years, Zuyanggu and the evil wolf army still could not find any trace of Su Zimo. Although some news had been sent over, it was all confirmed to be false in the end. Su Zimo seemed to have disappeared from the Dragon Abyss planet. In the end, Zuyanggu and the evil wolf army gradually gave up. In their opinion, with such a high bounty, there was only one possibility if there was no trace of Su Zimo. This person was already dead. On this day in the wilderness, a long howl suddenly sounded. It was as loud as the clouds and burst out with an extremely terrifying will. All the demons were silent. Duan Tianliang, Big Yellow, and the silver giant were all awakened from their cultivation and looked in the direction of the sound. Not long after, a man in a green robe walked out of the inconspicuous wooden house. He had delicate features and an indifferent expression. It was Su Zimo. Stage 5 Mystic Origin Realm. Duan Tianliang's divine sense swept across Su Zimo's body and could not help but be shocked and exclaim. Big Yellow and the silver giant also spread out their divine senses to check Su Zimo's cultivation realm. They were shocked. One had to know that in the upper realm, the unit of time was almost all calculated in thousands of years. There were a total of 9 levels of the mystic origin realm. And a mystic immortal's lifespan was 100,000 years. Most of the time, it would take tens of thousands of years to raise a small realm. In the past 10 years, although the cultivation speed of Big Yellow, the silver giant, and the others by Su Zimo's side had skyrocketed, they were still far from reaching the level where they could break through. Only Duan Tianliang had raised from Stage 2 Mystic Origin Realm to Stage 3 Mystic Origin Realm. No one expected that in just 10 years, Su Zimo had already become a Stage 5 Mystic Immortal when he came out of seclusion again. This is too scary. Big Yellow and the Silver Giant looked at Su Zimo as if they were looking at a monster. The speed of his cultivation made everyone's scalp go numb. Duan Tianliang even began to suspect that Su Zimo might be the reincarnation of some expert from the upper realm. Su Zimo's expression was calm. After 10 years of seclusion, he finally had a breakthrough. In the eyes of Duan Tianliang, Big Yellow, and the others, his cultivation speed was terrifying. However, Su Zimo knew that it was due to a huge amount of resources, powerful cultivation techniques, and a physique that had stolen the fortune of heaven and earth that allowed him to reach his current realm. In the past 10 years, his 40,000 core condensation pills had been used up. Chapter 1823. Su Zimo came out of seclusion this time because, on one hand, he had a breakthrough. On the other hand, it was because he no longer had any core condensation pills. In the mystic essence realm, core condensation pills were extremely useful to cultivators. Furthermore, the Green Lotus True Body's need for origin condensation pills was much greater than that of ordinary cultivators. Although there were no core condensation pills in Su Zimo's storage bag, there were still more than 3 million stalks of core nurturing grass and rainflowers. This was what he had collected from the Wolf Army and the shadow of the Blood Sun Valley 10 years ago. If these 3 million stalks of immortal herbs were to be exchanged in Ziyanggu, they could be exchanged for more than 30,000 core condensation pills. Of course, Su Zimo would definitely not go to Ziyanggu, because he had heard Xia Qingying mention before that if he could go to Dragon Lake City, 10 stalks of immortal herbs could be exchanged for 1 core condensation pill. More than 3 million stalks of immortal herbs were equivalent to more than 300,000 core condensation pills. In the past 10 years, Duan Tianliang had planted and managed the surrounding 100 acres of spirit fields and collected more than 100,000 stalks of immortal herbs. Su Zimo came out of seclusion this time and prepared to go to Dragon Lake City to take a look. What? Hearing Su Zimo's decision, Duan Tianliang was shocked. Dragon Lake City was the largest city on the entire Dragon Lake planet. It was also the only place where some native immortals were stationed. Ever since Duan Tianliang and the rest descended to Dragon Lake City, they were chased out and never returned. Boss, the journey to Dragon Lake City is long. Other than some dangerous places, the most terrifying thing is that there are all kinds of bandits. Duan Tianliang did not continue speaking. The meaning behind his words was obvious. Although Su Zimo was a stage 5 mystic immortal with strong combat strength and could even fight with people who were of a higher realm, their overall strength was still too weak. The Silver Giant, 9-headed bird, and other ferocious beasts could only step into the area occupied by cultivators in the form of mounts. If they appeared rashly, all the cultivators could kill them for no reason. On this Dragon Abyss star, there were too many Xian immortals that were stronger than the Silver Giant and the 9-headed bird. Duan Tianliang said, I remember that about 1,000 years ago, when the Lord of Snowy Ridge had just broken through to the 6th rank of the mystic immortal realm, he was also in high spirits and wanted to attempt to head to Dragon Lake City. Unexpectedly, he encountered bandits on the way. Snow Wind Ridge suffered heavy losses. It was only because Ziyanggu's men arrived in time that the Snow Wind Ridge Lord managed to survive and return. Su Zimo pondered for a moment, then said, only the 3 of us will be heading to Dragon Lake City this time. We don't have too big of a target and won't draw attention, so the danger will be much smaller as well. Su Zimo looked at Big Yellow and said, you should know the way to Longyuan City, right? Big Yellow quickly nodded. All these years, he had followed the Ziyanggu army to Longyuan City. That route was relatively safe. After all, Ziyanggu was one of the 8 major forces on Longyuan planet. There were almost no bandits who dared to provoke Ziyanggu's army. When they saw Ziyanggu's flag from afar, many bandits retreated in the face of difficulties. Let's go. Su Zimo said, let's go now. Instead of delaying here, it was better to go to Dragon Lake City as soon as possible and experience it. Dragon Lake City could be said to be the center of Longyuan planet. Only there could he solve the many doubts in Su Zimo's heart all these years. Duan Tianliang saw that Su Zimo had made up his mind and didn't dare to persuade him anymore. He could only brace himself and follow behind Su Zimo. This time, Su Zimo even specially let Duan Tianliang ride on Ing Zhao's body and took out a low-grade mystic rank magic treasure from his storage bag and gave it to him. Duan Tianliang immediately beamed with joy and the haze in his heart was swept away. Boss, not to mention Dragon Lake City, even if there is a mountain of blades and a sea of flames ahead, Duan Tianliang, will accompany you. Duan Tianliang patted his chest and was extremely excited. The two men and two beasts didn't stay in the wildlands and directly left for Dragon Lake City. Big Yellow carried Su Zimo and led the way. About a few days later, Su Zimo's group passed by Wind Snow Ridge and looked at it from afar. Wind Snow Ridge hadn't changed much in the past 10 years. Standing in the distance, they could still see some spiritual farmers farming and some guards patrolling. Su Zimo didn't delay and rode on Big Yellow, bypassing Wind Snow Ridge and continuing forward. The two men and two beasts traveled day and night, only stopping to rest occasionally. Along the way, they really didn't encounter any trouble. Some of the bandits had already retreated when they saw the 5th-level arcane origin realm Ing Zhao's aura. On this day, Su Zimo's group of 4 arrived at a mountain range. Not far ahead was a verdant mountain range. The mountain range rose and fell continuously, and it was verdant and lush. It stretched as far as the eye could see, and it was like a green ocean. This is the 100,000 Mountains. Over the years, Big Yellow's body had gradually become familiar with the human language. He said, "It will take about 10 days to pass through the 100,000 Mountains. Many bandits like to ambush cultivators in the 100,000 Mountains and kill them." Duan Tianliang said, "I heard that there are many ferocious beasts here." Big Yellow said, "There are indeed many. However, many years ago, the Xianggu Valley Master took action and led the Xianggu army to kill many ferocious beasts in the 100,000 Mountains and open a bloody path. Basically, no ferocious beasts dare to step on this bloody path, so it's much safer." Su Zimo nodded and patted Big Yellow's head. "Let's go." Big Yellow searched nearby for a while and finally found a mark. He went in from there and turned around before the path opened up. A bloody path led to the depths of the mountains, and there were corpses at the foot of the path. It was unknown how many ferocious beasts had died in the battle back then. Ancient trees stood on both sides of the bloody path, and it was dark. Su Zimo's group of 4 advanced on the bloody path. After walking for about a day, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. As though he sensed something, he tightened his legs and kicked Big Yellow's stomach. Big Yellow understood and hurriedly stopped. "Big brother, you're still the most thoughtful. This green-clothed cultivator is so strange. It's indeed possible that he's from Ziyang." The black-clothed youth sent a voice transmission with his consciousness. The red-clothed woman also looked at the short-haired man and sent a voice transmission. Could these two be spies sent by Xianggu? If that's the case, we can't let them leave. The short-haired man nodded slightly and suddenly raised his voice. "We're going to do something big here, but your identity and background are really suspicious. To be safe, I can only wrong you and keep you here first." Duan Tianliang was shocked and hurriedly said, "Big brother, you can't do this. You just said that you're going to let us leave. Why are you going back on your words?" Seeing Duan Tianliang so nervous, the black-clothed man became even more vigilant and sneered, "I was almost fooled by you. Just now, I was the one who asked you to leave, but my big brother hasn't agreed yet. The brothers around us haven't agreed yet." After saying this, the many cultivators in the forest on both sides of the bloody road had already closed in on Su Zimo and the others, surrounding them in the middle with unfriendly expressions. The short-haired man smiled and said, "Brother Su, you don't have to be nervous. I'm just keeping you by my side. I won't harm your lives or rob your things. When today's matter is over, I'll naturally let you go. Now, I can only wrong you." Hearing this, Duan Tianliang's expression relaxed slightly and he heaved a sigh of relief. No matter what, at least his life was saved. From the beginning to the end, Su Zimo's expression was calm, but the confusion in his heart was getting bigger and bigger. The short-haired burly man pondered for a moment and said to the red-robed woman beside him, "Little sister, take them down and guard them personally." After pausing for a moment, a murderous look flashed through the short-haired burly man's eyes as he said in a deep voice, "If the two of them try anything funny, don't show mercy and kill them without mercy." In the short-haired burly man's opinion, only a rank 6 mystic immortal guarding Su Zimo and the others could ensure that nothing would go wrong. "Don't worry, big brother." The red-robed woman nodded with a resolute gaze. Duan Tianyang stole a glance at Su Zimo. Su Zimo had a relaxed expression as he smiled. "Let's go." To think that we would be reduced to prisoners so quickly. Su Zimo had no intention of resisting for the time being. He wanted to see where these people came from and what they wanted. When the red-robed woman saw how cooperative Su Zimo was, she did not make things difficult for them and merely brought them to the forest far away, watching them from the side. The short-haired burly man looked at Su Zimo's back view and frowned in deep thought. "Big brother, did you discover anything?" the black-robed young man asked. The short-haired burly man shook his head. "No, I just feel like I've seen this person somewhere before. He looks familiar." "Strange," the black-robed young man added hurriedly. "I had the same feeling earlier on, but I can't recall where I've seen this person before." "Forget it, we'll talk about this later. Let's hide first and not expose ourselves." Taking a deep breath of air, the short-haired burly man waved his hand and hollered, "Retreat!" The moment he said that, hundreds of figures disappeared into the forest on both sides of the bloody path in an extremely fast and disciplined manner. In a few breaths, the bloody path returned to silence. The red-robed woman glared at Su Zimo and Duan Tianyang and whispered, "No matter what you see later on, don't make a sound. Otherwise," slapping her storage bag, the red-robed woman pulled out a long saber with a cold glint and pointed it at Su Zimo and the others. The meaning behind her words was obvious. Duan Tianyang's head nodded repeatedly like a chick pecking at rice. Su Zimo merely smiled without saying anything. End of chapter. Chapter 1825. Time passed gradually. It was silent on both sides of the bloody path. The forest was sinister and filled with a faint killing intent. Night fell. Su Zimo was in the middle of the forest and was guarded by many bandits. He was not as nervous as Duan Tianyang. He had a calm expression and was resting with his eyes closed the entire time, as though he could not sense any danger at all. Even the red-bloused woman was surprised. "I wonder if he's truly courageous or if he's heartless," the red-bloused woman thought to herself. All of a sudden, Su Zimo opened his eyes and a divine glint shone in his eyes before retracting it swiftly. Sensing something, the red-bloused woman was instantly on guard. Gripping the saber in her hands tightly, she glared at Su Zimo and whispered, "What are you trying to do?" "Someone's here." Su Zimo replied softly. The red-bloused woman frowned slightly and did not dare to use her spirit consciousness to check out for fear of alerting the enemy. She listened for a moment but did not hear anything. Her expression darkened as she whispered, "You'd better behave yourself and not play any tricks. If you continue spouting nonsense, don't blame me for splattering your blood on the spot." Su Zimo smiled and did not argue with her. Nearly a quarter of an hour passed. Suddenly, the red-bloused woman's expression changed. She had sensed something amiss in the distance. Many cultivators were rushing over. Right then, the short-haired burly man and the black-robed young man turned around and nodded slightly at the red-bloused woman. The short-haired burly man and the black-robed young man had clearly sensed something as well. Suddenly, the red-bloused woman recalled something and glanced at Su Zimo beside her with a bewildered expression. That was because this person suddenly reminded her that someone was here 15 minutes ago. But how was that possible? This person was only a grade 5 mystic immortal, and yet he possessed such frightening hearing? However, if this person had not sensed it beforehand, could it be a coincidence? Suddenly, the red-bloused woman felt as though there was a layer of mist shrouding the green-robed man, making him unfathomable. Su Zimo looked straight ahead and was unmoved, as though he could not sense the red-bloused woman's scrutinizing gaze. Before long, an irregular vibration came from the ground in the distance. This time, even Duan Tianyang noticed it. About 1,000 people. The red-clothed woman listened carefully for a while and made a judgment. Her expression relaxed slightly. This situation was not much different from the information they had received before. If nothing unexpected happened, today's matter would definitely succeed. Su Zimo shook his head slightly and said softly, "More than that." What? The red-robed woman was stunned. Before she could understand the meaning of the two words Su Zimo, there were already many figures on the bloody road not far in front of her. This army of over 1,000 people had already entered everyone's line of sight. Through the dense forest, Duan Tianliang could not help but widen his eyes when he saw the battle flag raised by the army. Big Yellow was also shocked. This war flag was Xiangu's war flag. Even Su Zimo was slightly surprised. He didn't expect that the woman in red and her gang would have designs on Xiangu. One had to know that Xiangu was one of the 8 major forces on the Longyuan planet. Generally speaking, even the 4 great bandits would not casually fight against the 8 major forces. Su Zimo's eyesight was extremely strong and could clearly see the appearances of the cultivators in this army. The leader was actually someone he was familiar with, the eldest young master of Xiangu, Qin Xianyang. After 10 years, Qin Xuanyang's cultivation was still at the 6th level of the mystic immortal realm. Qin Xianyang wore white armor and held a long spear in his hand. Riding on a tall horse, he looked extremely dignified. Beside Qin Xianyang was a slightly older old man. This old man was barehanded and did not wear any armor. He only wore a long gray robe and his long black and white hair was scattered casually. He had a calm expression. This old man was a 7th level mystic immortal. By the looks of it, this army led by Qin Xianyang should be preparing to head to Longyuan City. The strength of both sides seemed to be about the same. Seeing that Qin Xianyang was getting closer and closer to the ambush spot of the short-haired man and his gang, the woman in red became extremely nervous. She looked at Qin Xuanyang's direction and turned back to stare at Su Zimo. The woman in red's gaze was stern as she warned Su Zimo not to make any rash movements and not to make any noise. Suddenly, the short-haired man raised his arm and shouted in a low voice, "Kill! Bush, bush, bush." The cultivators who were lying in ambush in the forest suddenly threw out the long spears in their hands with all their might. They broke through the air and let out a series of soul-stirring sounds. The spears were like a rain of arrows that shot towards the 1,000-strong army of Xiangu in the middle of the bloody road. The corners of Qin Xuanyang's mouth curled up slightly and a trace of mockery flashed past his eyes. The old man beside him suddenly shouted softly. The 1,000-strong army of Xiangu seemed to be prepared as they changed their formation rapidly and formed a gigantic circle. The outermost Xiangu cultivators took out gigantic shields from their storage bags one after another and placed them in front of them. Some of the Xiangu cultivators in the middle raised their shields high above their heads. With that, the Xiangu army formed an impenetrable defensive formation that blocked all the long spears. A few of the long spears pierced towards Qin Xianyang. However, Qin Xianyang waved the long spear in his hands gently and pushed them away with a relaxed expression. Su Zimo shook his head gently. The situation before him was clear. The Xiangu were clearly prepared for this. If the short-haired man's group continued to attack, they would most likely be surrounded by the Xiangu. When he saw how swift the Xiangu's reaction was, a look of hesitation flashed through the short-haired man's eyes. His rationality told him that his plan this time round had failed. However, the arrow was already nocked and he had to release it. If he retreated just like that, he would be indignant. Just as he was hesitating, the black-robed young man beside him could not hold it in any longer and took the lead to dash out, shouting, "Brothers, kill! Take revenge for the dead! Let the Xiangu pay with their blood! Let the Xiangu pay with their blood!" Many cultivators' blood surged and they could not care less as they charged out of the forest towards the Xiangu army. When the short-haired man saw that, he could only roar and charge out on his ferocious beast with his gigantic axe. The other party had a Stage 7 Mystic Immortal. They had to get rid of this Stage 7 Mystic Immortal. Haha. Qin Xianyang looked at the many cultivators charging over without any fear in his eyes. Instead, he roared with laughter. Good timing. Sky Pillar Stronghold, Wind Cloud Gang, Righteous Mountain Village. I was just worried that I couldn't find you guys. To think that you guys would deliver yourselves to me today. Today, I'll make the remnants of the 3 factions disappear from the Dragon Abyss planet. Kill them. Qin Xianyang raised his long spear and shouted. The old man beside him leaped up from his warhorse and charged towards the short-haired man. End of chapter. Chapter 1826. The black-robed youth unsheathed the sword on his back and charged towards Qin Xianyang, who was at the front. He said coldly, "Qin Xianyang, hand over your life." Buzz. A sword hum sounded, accompanied by streaks of chilling sword light. The black-robed youth formed a sword seal with one hand and gripped his sword tightly with the other. He stabbed forward and instantly, dozens of sword lights and sword shadows were released. His swordsmanship was extraordinary. Every ray of sword light emitted a sharp aura. Qin Xianyang sneered with a mocking expression. The absolute shadow sword technique is too weak in your hands. Today, I'll send you to hell. Qin Xianyang channeled his blood qi and waved the spear in his hands. Heaven and earth yuan qi revolved around the spear. The spear seemed to be alive. Like a snake, it flicked its tongue in midair and stabbed towards the black-robed youth. The sword and spear collided. Clang, clang. Sword qi and spear shadows tore through the air. The two of them unleashed their most intense attacks the moment they clashed, and neither of them gave in. On the other side, the short-haired burly man had already exchanged blows with the gray-robed elder from Ziyang. It was clear that the short-haired burly man was proficient in body tempering techniques. Wielding a gigantic axe that could split open the heavens, every single move he made was forceful, ferocious, and intimidating. As for the gray-robed old man, he didn't seem to be an expert, but his every move was filled with a terrifying amount of power. The gray-robed elder fought the short-haired burly man barehanded and did not retreat at all. Clang, clang. His palms collided with the short-haired burly man's gigantic axe. If one focused their attention, they would realize that the gray-robed elder was wearing a pair of silver gloves on his palms. They were indestructible, and even the short-haired burly man's gigantic axe could not shake them. "Brat, how long has it been since you stepped into Mystic Essence Realm Level 7? The gray-robed elder sneered and said proudly, "I've been at Mystic Essence Realm Level 7 for tens of thousands of years. How dare you plot against my Ziyang with your puny skills? Old dog, you're already old. Your qi and blood are deteriorating." The short-haired man was not affected at all. Instead, his aura grew even stronger as he said loudly, "I'm at my peak, and my qi and blood are strong. Even if I exhaust you, I can exhaust you to death. What if you count us in?" Right at this moment, 2 figures suddenly flashed out from behind Ziyang. Their auras were terrifying, and they were on par with the gray-robed old man. They were actually 2 7th-level mysterious immortals. The level 7 mystic immortal on the left was a skinny, shifty-eyed man. This person held 2 daggers in both hands and walked in a strange footwork. His body swayed a few times, and in the blink of an eye, he was already beside the short-haired man. On the right was a woman with heavy makeup. She was extremely flirtatious. She was holding a silver needle that was as thin as a cow's hair. She stood in the distance and looked at the short-haired man with a smile. Even though Su Zimo and the others were far away from the battlefield, they could still smell the pungent fragrance coming from the woman. Not good. The lady's expression changed drastically, and she exclaimed, "It's the shadowless assassin and Queen Orchid. Ziyang has been prepared for this. He's been ambushed." Just as she finished speaking, a shocking change happened on the battlefield. The shadowless assassin with 2 daggers came to the short-haired man's side and suddenly attacked. The daggers circled in front of him, as if a whirlwind was formed. The short-haired man was entangled by the gray-robed old man and could not be distracted at all. He could only reluctantly retreat. Splat. Even so, there was a huge wound on his arm that was dripping with fresh blood. Boom. The gray-robed old man took advantage of the situation and punched him. The short-haired man endured the excruciating pain and clashed with the gray-robed old man once again. At the same time, the short-haired man felt his heart palpitate, as if a great disaster was about to befall him in the next moment. Before he could react, a silver orchid floated in front of him, emitting a pungent fragrance. Ah! The short-haired man was shocked and quickly retreated. One had to know that this was Queen Orchid's technique. This orchid was formed by Queen Orchid's silver needle and contained a deadly poison. Once released, it was extremely lethal. Hee hee. Queen Orchid stood in the distance and chuckled. Little brother Yu Hao, I was merciful earlier on. If I really wanted to kill you, you would be a dead man by now. Orchid. The gray-robed old man frowned slightly. You can have any man you want. Hurry up and join forces to kill this lad. Ice. Queen Orchid sighed softly. I really can't bear to part with you. Little brother Yu Hao, I'll give you a chance. If you listen to me obediently, I'll spare your life. How about that? Old witch, how dare you try to seduce me with this kind of behavior? The short-haired man burst into laughter fearlessly. Queen Orchid's expression darkened instantly and turned extremely terrible. Brat, I gave you face, but you don't want it. Let's see which of you can escape today. Queen Orchid's tone changed and was sinister. At the same time, when the black-robed young man saw that the short-haired man was in danger, he was distracted and was almost pierced by Qin Xuanyang's spear. He was flustered for a moment. Sanguine Sun Divine Spear. Chen Xianyang seized the opportunity and discovered the black-robed young man's weakness. Suddenly, he attacked and spun the spear rapidly with both hands, drawing an arc in midair that vaguely conjured a blood-colored sun. Clang. When the black-robed young man's sword struck the blood-colored sun, he suddenly felt an extremely strong power and lost his grip on his sword, causing it to fly out of his hands. In the blink of an eye, the black-robed young man was in danger as well. Right then, not far away, iron hooves clanged and dust billowed. A large army of cultivators was charging over on war horses with a murderous aura. The war flag of Ziyanggu was extremely striking. There were around 4,000 cultivators in the group. This time round, Ziyanggu did not send 1,000 cultivators. There were 5,000 of them. When they saw that, the hundreds of cultivators on the short-haired burly man's side were ashen and despair flashed through their eyes. It's over. The red-robed woman knew very well that there was a high chance that all of them would be wiped out this time round. Miss, we can't hold on any longer. Hurry and leave. At this moment, a heavily injured cultivator stumbled over. Looking at the red-robed woman, he used the last of his strength to say those words. The red-robed woman's face was pale. Although her eyes shone with fear, they quickly turned resolute as she grit her teeth. First, second brother is in danger. I have to save them. Just as the red-robed woman was about to leave, she seemed to have thought of something and turned around hurriedly. She said to Su Zimo and Duan Tenliang, hurry and run for your lives. The further, the better. The moment she said that, she was stunned. The green-robed cultivator behind her had already disappeared. Right from the beginning, she had not noticed it at all. Where's that person? The red-robed woman asked instinctively. Duan Tianliang blinked and pointed to the battlefield in the distance. I think he's there. The red-robed woman turned back and looked at the battlefield. Immediately after, she saw something that she would never forget for the rest of her life. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.